What's this? Tastes awful. If I eat this, I'll feel sick. Megan chuckled, poking fun at the dish I made. I had tried it earlier and it seemed fine to me. Megan was just being picky. Andy and I had spent 3 days getting ready for this dinner. We were thrilled when we heard that our eldest son and his wife were coming over. Looking back, Andy and I felt silly for getting our hopes up. Megan's rude behavior and Benny just going along with her wore us out. We felt distant from them. Keeping a relationship with Megan felt impossible. Maybe we need to set some clear rules with her before I talk to Megan about it. Andy reached for the dish. I'm Katie, a 70-something homemaker living with Andy. We have a son, Benny. He graduated from a fancy college, got a job in a big company, and moved to Boston. 2 years back, he said he was getting hitched. The girl he introduced as his fiancée seemed nice. Benny said after the wedding, they'd move closer to us and wanted to bond, especially Megan. We were cool with it, but wondered about Megan. Benny assured us she was thrilled and wanted to get close to us. So we were on board with their plan. Around 2 months after tying the knot, Benny and Megan stuck to their word and relocated close to us. We were looking forward to bonding with Benny and getting to know Megan better, but reality hit us hard. Benny switched from his main office to a branch in our town, thinking it'd work out fine, but life wasn't as easy. The issue was Megan's spending habits. Even when Benny was earning well at headquarters, Megan had a habit of overspending. And when Benny's paycheck took a slight hit after the transfer, Megan's spending didn't slow down. It actually got worse. No matter how much Benny brought in, Megan used up most of it, leaving them in a tough spot. Ben was never one to fuss over his looks and lived a simple life. Benny was always hustling to earn more and rarely had time to visit us. Megan wasn't around much either, making their move nearby seem pointless. Even though they were close by, we hardly ever saw them. Benny was always caught up in work, and we were hesitant to directly reach out to Megan. It felt heartbreaking knowing Benny was going through a tough time. Despite his struggles, we tried to help by sending them $1,000 every month. We wished we could give more, but with Andy retired and us living on a pension, it was all we could manage. Every time we sent money, Benny would express his gratitude, but his voice sounded weary, which pained us deeply. We wanted to support him as his parents, so we decided to help in any small way we could. On our days off, we'd spend time with him, take him shopping, and treat him to a meal. When Benny and Megan were away, we cleaned their house for them. We knew these gestures couldn't solve all of Benny's problems, but doing something felt better than doing nothing. 2 years went by, and Benny's situation didn't improve. Seeing him struggle, we felt compelled to do something. We came up with a plan to invite Benny and Megan over for a meal. Knowing Megan might not accept a simple dinner invitation, we decided to go all out and prepare a lavish feast to tempt them. When I suggested this to Andy, he hesitated because he wasn't confident in his cooking skills, but he took the initiative and even went out to buy the ingredients. To our delight, the promise of a feast did the trick, and both Benny and Megan agreed to come over for 3 days and nights. Andy and I busied ourselves with preparing the meal while Benny and Megan showed up at our doorstep in the afternoon. They appeared to unwind, shedding the stresses of their daily lives. Benny seemed particularly worn out, prompting us to offer him our bedroom to rest. As Benny headed off to rest, Megan, seemingly unaware of our cooking efforts, lounged on the sofa, engrossed in the TV. Suddenly, she strolled into the kitchen and bluntly questioned, "Why are you putting in so much effort?" Taken aback by her abrupt inquiry, we were unable to respond before she continued, "Seriously, what's the point? Are you enjoying this? If you have spare time, why not find work and make some money? Retirement must be tough, huh?" Her mocking laughter filled the room. I stepped forward. "Isn't it impolite to speak like that when you're invited for a meal? Where's your respect for your in-laws?" "A little decency wouldn't hurt." Megan's face flushed red. "Are you trying to pick a fight with me? Do you think your words don't sting?" I had no intention of starting a confrontation. I simply wanted her to exhibit basic manners. However, seeing her twist my words and become defensive left me speechless. Megan, apparently satisfied with her outburst, returned to the living room. Andy looked dismayed, but we had dinner preparations to focus on, so we tried to regroup. Suddenly, from the hallway, we heard Megan's voice escalating. "Why are you always against me? Can't you support me just once? I'm your wife." Alarmed, we hurried out to see what was going on. Megan stood by the bedroom door, and Benny, who should have been resting, was there too. "Why won't you stand by me? Why are you siding with your parents?" Megan shouted, clutching Benny's shirt. Sensing the situation spiraling out of control, we intervened. "Let's calm down. What's happening here?" Andy held Megan back, while I approached Benny to understand what was going on. Weary, Benny recounted what had occurred. He had been trying to get some rest in the bedroom after a long day at work, but was startled awake by a slamming door. Upon investigating, he found Megan in a state of fury. She vented about feeling harassed and labeled me as the problem. Benny was bewildered and overwhelmed. In her heightened emotions, Megan misinterpreted Benny's silence as taking our side, and she began questioning his loyalty as her husband. Benny, still groggy from sleep, struggled to comprehend the situation and felt powerless. Megan's anger only escalated upon seeing Benny's confusion, leaving him caught in the middle and visibly drained. I confronted Megan, saying, "It's not okay to wake up and yell at your exhausted husband. Do you understand how strange you're acting?" Megan, perhaps feeling trapped, mumbled a half-hearted apology, but her eyes showed no remorse. Despite the tension, we gathered around the table for dinner. We had prepared ribeye steaks and fresh seafood from the local market, trying to offer the best. Benny seemed to appreciate it, but Megan, glancing at the spread, made a sarcastic remark, "Just because you serve this doesn't mean I'll overlook the harassment." It was disheartening to hear after all our efforts. Benny tried to lighten the mood with different topics, but Megan shut down each attempt with icy comments. I told her, "You need to change your attitude," but she simply ignored me. The TV was off, so I knew she heard me. Honestly, I felt dejected realizing that she deliberately ignored me. Feeling discouraged, Andy tried to comfort me. We managed to say grace before the meal, but after Megan tasted the dish, she exclaimed, "What's this disgusting mess? I'll get sick from eating this." She laughed mockingly, leaving me speechless at her cruelty. But she didn't stop there. "You're deliberately trying to make me sick with this food, aren't you? Going to such extremes just to torment me. You're truly wicked, mother-in-law." Her words dripped with disdain, causing my hands to tremble with anger. Why must we endure this? How can Megan treat others so cruelly? Seeing Benny so exhausted, why doesn't she feel any inclination to help? Why does she brush off our kindness? I had so much I wanted to express to Megan, but the right words eluded me. However, I couldn't let her behavior continue unchecked. Sensing my frustration, Andy reached for his plate. I've remained silent until now, but I've reached my limit. Andy's usually calm demeanor transformed into something intimidating when he was angry. It had been a long time since I'd seen him so upset. With his anger still simmering, Andy declared, "I'm severing ties with you. Leave immediately." Andy's voice boomed as he confronted Megan. Even Megan appeared startled, her face paling. "What's this, father-in-law? How could you say such things to your daughter-in-law? Do you find joy in causing trouble? I never imagined you, father-in-law, would stoop so low," she shot back, tears welling in her eyes. But despite Megan's protests, Andy stood firm. "I don't care if you call it harassment. I can't consider you family anymore. Leave." Andy's words made Megan realize the severity of the situation. "Fine, I'll go. From now on, I want nothing to do with you or mother-in-law. You'll regret this," she declared, packing her belongings and departing. I asked Benny if he wanted to go after her, but he seemed resigned. "It doesn't matter," he muttered, focusing on his meal. So we opted to let her go, fearing another confrontation if Benny followed her home. We decided he would stay the night. Benny appeared relieved, preferring not to face Megan at that moment. For the first time in ages, we enjoyed some genuine family time. We swapped stories, aired grievances about Megan, and even camped out in the living room, reminiscing about old times. The cramped couch reminded me how much Benny had grown. However, our peace was short-lived. The next morning, the doorbell rang, jolting us awake. As anticipated, it was Megan. Scanning the room, I confirmed it was indeed Megan at the door. As Benny, Andy, and I debated our next move, the door was pounded loudly. "Mother-in-law, I know you're in there. Where's Benny?" "He's here, isn't he? Let him out." Megan's words filled me with dread. Handing Benny over to her now could only make things worse. So we agreed to let Megan in and have a conversation. As soon as the door opened, Megan barged in, fixing me with a hostile glare. "You think you can steal someone's husband? That's outrageous," she yelled, her anger palpable. But her accusations no longer affected me. "That's a harsh way to put it. We simply offer him a place to stay because of the way you've been treating him. He made the choice, not me. Blaming me is unfair, don't you think?" Megan's face blushed crimson. "You're the worst mother-in-law and father-in-law for allowing this behavior. Stay away from us forever." Her words held no sway over us. Andy and I were prepared to sever ties with Megan. Tension hung thick in the air until Benny's words changed everything. "I can't do this anymore. Let's get a divorce." Benny's words stunned Megan, her face still flushed with anger. "Divorce? Seriously? You're choosing your parents over me?" Her tone softened, and she pleaded with Benny, her eyes filled with desperation. But Benny stood firm. "A wife who neglects her responsibilities and parties constantly versus my parents, who've always been there for me. The choice is obvious." Megan, still unconvinced, argued, "They're just manipulating you. Once they have you, they'll abandon you too." Faceless accusations. We never abandoned Benny, but Megan, eager to portray us as villains, hysterically shouted, "You're trying to take Benny away from me. Do you hate me that much?" At this point, it was unclear how to calm her down. Then, unexpectedly, Benny slapped Megan across the face. The room fell silent, shocked. Megan struggled to comprehend what had just happened. "You've not only been a burden to me, but also to my parents. Aren't you ashamed? I hoped you'd come to your senses, but I was wrong. Please don't say such things. I love you, please reconsider. My decision is final. From now on, we're strangers. Don't ever call yourself my wife again." Megan looked defeated. No one reached out to her. Eventually, she left, realizing there was no point in arguing. In the following days, Benny stayed with us as he initiated the divorce proceedings, which were recently finalized. Megan was hesitant to sign the papers, so they had to involve lawyers. Fortunately, Benny had evidence of Megan's extravagant spending habits, which helped him secure the divorce. He also sought compensation in court. Due to his deteriorating health from stress and overwork, Benny was unfortunately diagnosed with a lifestyle-related illness. Megan's parents eventually paid the settlement, leaving Benny indebted to them. Megan now works tirelessly day and night to repay them.
My name is Sarah Thompson, and I'm a 28-year-old elementary school teacher from a quiet Midwestern town. Little did I know, my life was about to take a dark and unexpected turn, unraveling secrets that would shake everything I thought I knew about my family. It was a crisp autumn evening when I received the phone call that changed everything. My father, David Thompson, had been rushed to the hospital. As I sped through the dimly lit streets, my heart pounded with worry. Dad had always been my anchor, especially since losing Mom when I was just 15. "Please, Dad, you have to be okay," I whispered, gripping the steering wheel. When I arrived at the hospital, I found my stepmother, Linda, who had been in my life for the past 3 years, pacing in the waiting room. Her usually impeccable hair was in disarray, and mascara streaks ran down her cheeks. "Sarah, thank God you're here," Linda said, her voice shaky. "The doctors won't tell me anything." Just then, a doctor approached us, his expression serious. "Are you David Thompson's family?" "Yes, I'm his daughter." "How is he?" I asked, my heart in my throat. The doctor's face softened slightly. "I'm sorry, but your father is in critical condition. We're doing everything we can, but you should prepare yourselves." The next few days blurred into one, machines beeping, hushed voices, and endless prayers. I rarely left Dad's side, holding his hand and reminiscing about happier times. Linda came and went, always on her phone, which I tried to dismiss as her way of coping. On the fourth day, as I dozed in an uncomfortable chair, I felt a faint squeeze on my hand. Startled, I opened my eyes to see Dad staring at me, his gaze sharp despite his frailty. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "the safe in my office. The combination is your birthday. You need to." Suddenly, the machines erupted into a frenzy of alarms. Dad's eyes rolled back as his body convulsed. I screamed for help, watching in helpless terror as doctors rushed in. They worked frantically, pressing defibrillator paddles to his chest. "Clear," the doctor shouted, but Dad's body fell still. "Time of death, 10:47 p.m., the doctor announced softly. My world shattered. I collapsed to the floor, my sobs echoing through the sterile room. Linda held me, but her embrace felt cold, distant. Through my grief, Dad's final words haunted me. What was in the safe? Why had he been so desperate for me to find it? The funeral was a solemn affair. As I stood by the graveside, I noticed my Uncle Robert lingering at the back of the crowd. Our eyes met, and a chill ran down my spine. There had always been tension between him and Dad, but the look he gave me was different, darker, almost triumphant. That night, unable to sleep, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would open the safe. Whatever secret Dad had left for me, I had to know. The morning after the funeral, I stood in front of Dad's office door, my hand trembling as it hovered over the doorknob. The house was eerily quiet. Linda had left for a business meeting, something that struck me as odd considering the circumstances. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. Dad's presence lingered in every corner, the faint scent of his cologne, the familiar disarray of papers on his desk. My eyes locked onto the safe, hidden behind a landscape painting. With shaking fingers, I entered the combination, my birthday, just as Dad had said. The safe door swung open with a soft click. Inside was a stack of documents and a sealed envelope with my name scrawled across it. My heart raced as I opened the letter, unfolding the familiar handwriting. "Sarah, my darling daughter, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I only hope I had the chance to tell you in person. But if not, you must know the truth. Your life is in danger. Linda and Robert are not who they claim to be." Suddenly, a noise from downstairs startled me. Footsteps, closer, too close. Panic surged through me as I shoved the letter and documents into my bag. I barely had time to close the safe and replace the painting when the door to the office burst open. Uncle Robert stood there, his expression a mask of false concern. "Sarah, dear, I've been looking all over for you. The lawyer's here for the will reading." I forced a smile, my heart racing. My mind was spinning. "Of course, I'll be right down." In the living room, a stern-faced lawyer I'd never seen before sat beside Linda, who was dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Robert guided me to a seat, his hand on my shoulder heavy with something that felt more like a threat than comfort. The will reading was a blur of legal jargon. But one thing became painfully clear. Everything, every last penny, every piece of property had been left to Linda. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "There must be some mistake," I protested, glancing between the lawyer and Linda. "Dad would never." Before I could finish, Robert cut in, his voice sugary sweet. "Now, Sarah, your father clearly wanted to ensure Linda was taken care of. I'm sure you want that too, don't you?" Linda reached out and patted my hand, her touch icy, like she was trying to calm a wild animal rather than comfort me. "I'll make sure you're provided for. Don't worry," she said, a small smug smile tugging at her lips. I yanked my hand away, bile rising in my throat. This is wrong. All of it. I barely held back tears as I fled to Emily's house. As soon as I spilled the entire story to her, showing her Dad's letter, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Sarah, this is insane. You have to go to the police." I shook my head. "With what proof?" "A half-burnt letter. I need more." That night, my mind raced, replaying everything. Hushed phone calls, secretive glances between Linda and Robert, Dad's increasing paranoia. Something wasn't right, and I had to get to the bottom of it. The next morning, I drove to Dad's office building, determined to find answers. As I approached, I saw Michael, Dad's old friend and longtime lawyer, exiting the building. His face was drawn, confused. "Sarah," he called out, hurrying over. "I'm so sorry about your father." "Michael, did you know about the will?" I interrupted, my heart pounding. He frowned. "Will? David asked me to draw up a new 1 month ago. leaving everything to you. But we never finalized it. He kept talking about protecting you from something, but wouldn't say what. My blood ran cold. That's not the will that was read yesterday, I whispered, a sick feeling in my stomach. Michael's face paled. Sarah, what exactly is going on here? Before I could answer, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside us. The tinted window rolled down, revealing Robert's cold, taunting smile. Sarah, Linda's been looking everywhere for you, he said smoothly. Why don't you come with me? We have so much to discuss. I glanced at Michael, fear reflected in his wide eyes. I can't trust anyone anymore. My heart pounded as I stared at Robert's menacing smile through the SUV window. In a split-second decision, I grabbed Michael's arm and bolted toward his car. Drive, I yelled as we scrambled inside. Without hesitation, Michael peeled out of the parking lot, the SUV roaring to life behind us. What the hell is going on, Sarah? Michael demanded, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I quickly filled him in on the fake will and Dad's cryptic warning. Michael's face went ghostly pale. This is bigger than we thought, he muttered. We need help. We picked up Emily and regrouped at Michael's office, piecing together the puzzle. A chilling picture emerged. Robert, drowning in gambling debts, had teamed up with Linda to steal Dad's fortune. But how deep did the deception go? We need proof, Emily said, her investigative instincts kicking in. Security footage, handwriting samples, anything that can show the will was forged. Michael nodded grimly. I'll pull David's banking records. If there's been any unusual activity, we'll find it. As they worked, I remembered Jessica, Dad's longtime assistant. If anyone knew Dad's recent movements, it would be her. I quickly called her and arranged to meet at a quiet cafe. When she arrived, her eyes were red-rimmed with worry. She slid into the booth across from me, squeezing my hand. I've been so worried about you, Sarah, she said, voice trembling. Your father, he knew something was wrong. He made me promise to give you this if anything happened to him. She pressed a small flash drive into my palm. Hope surged through me as I closed my fingers around it. Back at Michael's office, we huddled around the computer as I plugged in the drive. A video of Dad appeared on the screen, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, if you're watching this, I'm gone. Linda isn't who she claims to be. I've discovered she's been married multiple times, always to wealthy men who died under suspicious circumstances. She's working with Robert. But I don't know how deep the conspiracy goes. Be careful who you trust. Dad's voice warned from the video, a tremor in his tone. I've hidden evidence in the old cabin. I love you, sweetheart. Stay safe. The video ended, leaving us frozen in stunned silence. We need to get to that cabin, Emily said, already grabbing her coat and heading for the door. As we drove to the secluded family vacation spot, Michael's phone rang. It was the private investigator he'd hired. You're not going to believe this, Michael said, his voice tense after hanging up. Linda's real name is Eleanor Blackwood. She's wanted in 3 states for identity fraud and embezzlement. At the cabin, we found a hidden safe behind a loose board in the wall. Inside were documents detailing Robert and Linda's entire scheme, how they planned to seize Dad's fortune, and how far they'd gone to cover their tracks. Armed with this damning evidence, we decided it was time to confront Robert. We found him at Dad's house, frantically packing a suitcase, his face drained of color when he saw us. It's over, Robert, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We know everything. His shoulders slumped and his voice cracked. I never wanted to hurt David. The debts. Linda said she could fix everything. I didn't know she was planning to. He couldn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Dad's death might not have been natural after all. Suddenly, the screech of tires outside shattered the silence. We rushed to the window just as Linda's SUV sped away, sirens wailing in the distance. My heart sank. I realized then, this wasn't over. Linda was still out there, and she had nothing left to lose. The truth behind Dad's death was still shrouded in mystery, but I was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. With Robert's confession and the mountain of evidence we had gathered, justice for Dad was within reach. But as I watched the flashing lights of the police cars paint the darkening sky, a cold knot of fear tightened in my chest. The most dangerous part of this ordeal was still ahead. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and police interviews. I stood firm, presenting all the evidence we had uncovered to the authorities. The forged will was quickly invalidated, and Robert faced the consequences of his actions. Watching Robert being led away in handcuffs, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. He betrayed our family, but in the end, his confession had been crucial in unraveling the entire conspiracy. The search for Linda intensified. Her face was plastered across news channels and billboards, but she seemed to have vanished into thin air. I knew it was only a matter of time before justice caught up with her. 3 months after Dad's death, the call I'd been waiting for came. Linda had been arrested trying to cross the Canadian border, her trunk packed with cash and fake passports. The officer on the phone assured me that, with the evidence we had, Linda would be facing a long sentence behind bars. With the legal battles finally over, I inherited Dad's business and our family home. Standing in his office, surrounded by his things, I made a decision. I would use part of my inheritance to start a scholarship fund in Dad's name, helping underprivileged kids in our community pursue their dreams. As the months passed, I found a new rhythm in my life. I threw myself into teaching, my students' bright faces reminding me daily of the good in the world. In the evenings, I pored over the books of Dad's business, determined to keep his legacy alive. 1 year to the day after Dad's passing, I stood at his grave, a bouquet of his favorite flowers in my hands. The pain of loss was still there, but it had softened, now mixed with gratitude for the time we'd had and the lessons he taught me. The story of Sarah Thompson's fight for justice has come to an end. But now we turn to you, our viewers. If you were in Sarah's position, would you have forgiven Robert for his role in the conspiracy, given his eventual cooperation? Or do you believe his actions were unforgivable, no matter his remorse? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could shed light on the complex nature of betrayal and redemption. If you enjoyed this thrilling tale of family secrets and perseverance, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more captivating stories. Your support helps us continue bringing you engaging content like Sarah's journey. Hi, I'm Mary, and today I want to share a story about how my life with my husband, Aaron, took an unexpected turn that changed everything. Our lives were pretty simple. We both worked from home, enjoying the peace and routine we had built together. It was just the two of us until one day, Aaron's sister, Karen, showed up unannounced with her daughter, Teresa. It wasn't the first time Karen had dropped Teresa off for a few hours, but this time marked the beginning of a new chaotic chapter in our lives. "Hey, I'm really caught up with some things. Can Teresa stay with you today?" Karen asked, her voice rushed as she barely waited for a response. She practically pushed the stroller into our living room. At first, it was just a few hours here and there, and we didn't mind. Teresa was a delight, her laughter filling our home with a warmth we hadn't realized was missing. But soon, Karen's visits became more frequent, and her stays longer, often without any prior notice. One evening, as Aaron and I were in the middle of a project deadline, Karen called. "I need to leave Teresa with you for a couple of days. I'm heading out of town for an emergency," she said, sounding desperate. "But Karen, we have a huge presentation tomorrow. We really can't." I started to protest, but she had already hung up. An hour later, Teresa was on our doorstep, sleeping peacefully in her carrier, unaware of the inconvenience her mother had just created. As days turned into weeks, Aaron's patience began to wear thin. "We can't keep adjusting our lives like this. It's not fair to us or to Teresa," he vented one night as we tried to rework our schedules yet again to accommodate another one of Karen's last-minute drop-offs. I know. Let's sit down with Karen this weekend and set some hard rules. She needs to understand that we have our own lives," I suggested, hoping we could bring some order to the chaos. That weekend, we sat down with Karen over coffee, trying to express our concerns. "We love Teresa, you know that, but we need more predictability. We can't keep functioning this way," Aaron explained, trying to keep his tone neutral. "Yeah, sure, I get it. I'll try to give you more heads up next time," Karen replied nonchalantly, brushing off the seriousness of our request. Despite our conversation, nothing changed. Karen's promises to plan better were empty, and Teresa's surprise stays continued, straining not just our schedules but our marriage too. Every time Karen called, my heart sank, knowing the disruption each call brought with it. Our story was turning into a cycle of frustration and makeshift solutions as Aaron and I struggled to balance our unexpected role as part-time parents with our professional responsibilities. But through it all, our bond with Teresa only grew stronger. Her presence was a silver lining in the storm that had become our daily lives. As the weeks turned into months, I realized that despite the challenges, Teresa had become a part of our family in a way we never expected. But little did we know, the real storm was yet to come, one that would test us in ways we couldn't imagine. We were wrapping up at a conference when my phone exploded with notifications, frantic texts from our neighbor, and several missed calls from an unknown number. My stomach sank as I stepped outside to call back. "You need to come home now. There's a serious situation with Teresa." Our neighbor's voice trembled through the phone. Aaron and I rushed home, our minds racing with worst-case scenarios. As we pulled up, our usually quiet street looked like a scene from a drama show, with police cars and a social services vehicle parked outside our house. My heart dropped. "What's going on?" "We're Teresa's aunt and uncle," Aaron said as we approached the officer in charge. "We received a call about a child left unattended. Can you explain why the child was alone?" The officer questioned sternly. Before we could answer, Karen burst through the crowd, her face a mix of panic and anger. "This is all a misunderstanding. I just left her for a little bit. They're always home." "Karen, what were you thinking? We were at a conference. We told you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. The social worker stepped forward, her expression serious. "We need to sort this out properly. It's clear there's been neglect." "No, you don't understand. Teresa is not our child." "We didn't even know Karen was going to drop her off today," Aaron interjected, his voice firm. The social worker took notes while the police talked amongst themselves. Karen stood there, shifting from foot to foot, her usual defiance replaced with a nervous twitch. "Look, we take care of Teresa a lot, but there was no arrangement for today. Karen knows we have professional commitments," I explained, hoping to shed some light on the chaos. The officer nodded. "We'll need to verify all these details. For now, we need to ensure Teresa is safe." As they spoke, I couldn't help but I glanced over at Teresa, who was being held by another officer. Her small face was filled with confusion and fear, and my heart ached to see her like that, caught in the middle of an adult mess. After hours of discussions and calls, the immediate crisis was diffused. The officers and social worker eventually left, but not before making it clear that a follow-up visit was on the horizon. Karen apologized half-heartedly before leaving, but the damage was done. "I can't believe she just left Teresa like that. What if something had happened?" Aaron said, his face etched with worry after everyone had gone. "We need to do something, Aaron. We can't let this happen again. Teresa could have been seriously hurt," I replied, my mind racing with the implications of the day's events. "Yeah, we need legal advice. We have to protect Teresa, and frankly, ourselves too. This can't go on," Aaron agreed, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a resolve I hadn't seen before. As we settled back into the quiet of our home, the events of the day replayed in my mind. It was clear that our informal arrangement with Karen had to end. For Teresa's sake, and for our peace of mind, we needed a solid plan, one that would ensure her safety and our legal protection. But as I watched Teresa sleeping peacefully in her temporary crib, unaware of the turmoil around her, I knew this was just the beginning of a long and complicated journey. "We need to talk about Teresa's future," Aaron said as we met with a family lawyer the following week. "We're considering foster care or even adoption if that's what's best for her." The lawyer nodded as she sorted through some papers. "Given the circumstances, fostering is a viable option, but you'll need to start the process formally. There's a lot involved: home visits, background checks, and several court dates." "Whatever it takes," I replied, determination settling in. The thought of Teresa being anywhere but safe was unbearable. Meanwhile, Karen's visits dwindled as her own issues mounted. When she did show up, the tension was palpable. "Why are you doing this? You're trying to take my daughter," Karen accused during one of her increasingly rare and heated visits. "It's not about taking anyone. It's about what's best for Teresa. You're her mother, Karen, but you can't even tell us when you'll pick her up or drop her off." Aaron countered, frustration bleeding through his measured tone. "I'm her mother. You think you can do this better than me?" Karen's voice cracked, a mix of anger and despair. "We are doing this because we have to, Karen. Someone has to be stable for Teresa," I added, hoping to soften the blow. The legal process was slow and grueling. Teresa became more and more attached to us, her routine with us providing a stark contrast to the sporadic appearances of her mother. Each court appearance, each home visit from social services felt like stepping onto a battlefield, fighting for the right to give Teresa a normal life. Mrs. and Mr. Smith, we've observed Teresa's interaction with both of you. It's clear she views you as her primary caregivers, the social worker noted during one visit, scribbling notes as Teresa played quietly at my feet. We just want what's best for her, Aaron explained, and I squeezed his hand, thankful for his unyielding support. As the court date approached to decide Teresa's future, Karen seemed to unravel further. You can't take her from me. I'll fight you, she warned over the phone one evening. We don't want to fight, Karen. We want Teresa to have a stable home. Why can't you see that this is bigger than any of us? I tried to reason with her, but it felt like talking to a wall. The day of the ruling, we sat in a courtroom, hands intertwined, the weight of the past months bearing down on us. Karen was there, looking worn and defeated. The court has decided to grant temporary custody to Mary and Aaron Smith, with the possibility of moving towards adoption if conditions do not improve for the biological mother, the judge finally declared. Relief washed over me, tinged with sadness for Karen. As we walked out of the courthouse, Karen approached us. Take good care of her, that's all I asked, she said, her voice soft and resigned. We will, Karen. We promise, Aaron replied, compassion in his voice. As we drove home, the sun was setting in a brilliant display of oranges and reds. I looked at Teresa in the rearview mirror, her eyes sleepy but content. The road ahead would be long and perhaps never easy, but as long as Teresa was with us, it felt right. Her laughter filled the car, a sound now as essential as air, and in that moment I knew we had made the right decision, no matter how hard it had been to get there. Let's get this room fixed up for Teresa. She deserves a space of her own, Aaron said as we surveyed the guest room, now destined to become Teresa's nursery. Paint samples and fabric swatches were spread out on the floor, a kaleidoscope of potential. I think she'd love this sunshine yellow. It's bright and happy, just like her, I suggested, holding up a swatch. Aaron nodded, and we set to work transforming the room into a haven for Teresa, assembling furniture and decorating the walls with cheerful decals. As we worked, our conversations often drifted to Karen and how we could facilitate a healthy relationship between her and Teresa. It's important for Teresa to know her mother, no matter what's happened, I mused, smoothing down a decal. Absolutely. I'll reach out to the social worker and set up a schedule for supervised visits. We need to ensure it's structured and safe. Aaron agreed, his voice firm but thoughtful. The first supervised visit was set for the following week at a local park. Karen arrived looking nervous but hopeful. Teresa ran toward her, a small giggle escaping as she flew into her mother's arms. It's good to see you, Teresa, Karen whispered, hugging her tightly. I've missed you so much. We've set up some ground rules, Karen. It's important that these visits are positive for Teresa, I said, watching them closely. I understand. I don't want to cause any more trouble. I just want to be part of her life, even if it's like this. Karen replied, her eyes not meeting mine. As they played, Aaron and I discussed our approach moving forward. We should keep these visits regular but always supervised. Maybe over time, we can revisit the terms. Agreed, but for now, we need to keep control, I said, watching Aaron's gaze linger on Teresa and Karen, who were now laughing together. Let's just see how these visits go. We can adjust as needed, Aaron responded thoughtfully. Over the next few months, the visits became a routine part of our lives. Karen seemed to stabilize somewhat, her interactions with Teresa growing more natural, yet the shadow of past events lingered as a reminder of the boundaries we had set. During one visit, Karen appeared more upbeat than usual. I've been taking some classes and I'm trying to get a better job. I want to be someone Teresa can be proud of, she shared during a quiet moment. That's great to hear, Karen. It's good for Teresa to see you working to improve things, I acknowledged, feeling a cautious optimism. As the year progressed, Aaron and I revisited the arrangement. Do you think we should start allowing Karen a little more leeway with the visits? I asked one evening, considering Karen's progress. Maybe, Aaron replied, always cautious. Let's discuss it with the social worker and see what she thinks. Karen has been doing well, and it might be time to test slightly relaxed conditions. With each step, Whether painting a nursery or navigating the complexities of supervised visits, Aaron and I found our rhythm in this new life. Despite the challenges, or perhaps because of them, our family felt stronger, more resilient. Teresa's laughter had become the heart of our home, and every decision, every effort was made to nurture that sound. As we moved forward, cautious yet hopeful, I knew that no matter the complexities of the past, our future was something we could shape into something beautiful, for Teresa and for us. Can you believe how fast Teresa is growing up? She's reading already, Aaron marveled, watching Teresa curled up in a corner of her room, absorbed in a picture book. It's amazing, she's like a little sponge, soaking up everything, I replied, my heart swelling with pride at her eagerness to learn. At one of our family barbecues, Karen arrived a bit early to help set up, a sign of how much she had changed over the years. You know, Aaron, Mary, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for Teresa. Seeing her so happy and healthy, it means the world to me, Karen said, handing her a stack of plates to set on the table. We're glad you're here too, Karen. It's been good for Teresa to have you in her life in a way that's healthy for everyone, Aaron said. Hey Mom, look what I drew at school today. Teresa ran over, waving a colorful drawing of our family, including Karen. That's beautiful, sweetie. You included everyone. I praised her, and she beamed with joy. Yeah, I wanted it to have all the people I love, Teresa explained, pointing at each figure she had drawn. As the afternoon waned, Karen sat down next to me, watching Teresa play with her cousins. She's really thriving with you. I've been going to therapy, really working on myself. It's not easy, but seeing Teresa like this helps a lot. It sounds like you're really making progress, Karen. That's great to hear. I responded, genuinely happy for her efforts. Yeah, I just wish I'd gotten help sooner, but I guess we all come to things in our own time. Karen reflected, her tone tinged with regret, but also hope. As Teresa's birthday approached, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Aaron and I had stepped into roles we never planned for, but now, I couldn't imagine our lives any other way. We have formed a family, not just through blood, but through choice, love, and patience. Watching our little girl laugh, her life a tapestry of love and resilience, I knew we had done something truly wonderful. Now that our story has reached its conclusion, I have a thought-provoking question for you all. Do you think Karen should have been given a chance to be more involved in Teresa's life earlier, considering her efforts to improve herself? Or did Mary and Aaron make the right decision by waiting until she proved her stability? This touches on themes of redemption and trust, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How would you balance the well-being of a child with the rights of a parent who is trying to turn their life around? If you enjoyed this story and the discussion it sparked, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Your engagement helps us keep these stories coming. Hi, I'm Sarah. Life took an unexpected turn that changed everything for me and my daughter, Lily. As a single mom and a school teacher, I lead a simple but fulfilling life in our tight-knit community where everyone knows each other. On a sunny afternoon, I decided to take Lily to the local playground after school. She adores the big blue slide there and could spend hours sliding down, her laughter ringing through the park. While she played, I chatted with other parents, soaking in the warm sun and the easy camaraderie. Suddenly, a woman I'd never seen before approached us with a determined stride. Her gaze was fixed on Lily with an intensity that made me uneasy. As she drew closer, her pace quickened, and her expression became frantic. She stopped in front of us, breathless and distressed. Emily, is that you? Oh my God, you're alive, she exclaimed, reaching out toward Lily. Lily, confused and frightened, ran over and clung to my leg. I wrapped my arm around her protectively and eyed the woman warily. I'm sorry, but you must be mistaken. This is my daughter, Lily, I said cautiously. The woman, who introduced herself as Karen, was insistent. No, I know what I'm talking about. That's my daughter, Emily. She was taken from me right here years ago. Look, she even looks just like me. Karen's agitation grew with every word, her voice rising and drawing the attention of everyone in the park. I've been looking for her for years. You have my child, she shouted. Trying to stay calm, I replied, I understand you're upset, but there's clearly a misunderstanding. Lily has been with me since birth, and I have all the documentation to prove it. But Karen wasn't listening. She began pleading with bystanders, please help me. This woman has my child. Her desperation was palpable, and soon someone called the police. As we waited for the police to arrive, I did my best to comfort Lily, who was now crying, frightened by the commotion. "It's okay, honey. Mommy's here. Everything will be all right." When the police arrived, they had to physically restrain Karen as she tried to pull Lily from my arms. "Please, officer, she's my daughter. You have to believe me." Karen was nearly hysterical, her distress heart-wrenching despite knowing her claims were unfounded. The officer, maintaining a calm demeanor amidst the chaos, said, "We need to sort this out at the station. We'll need documentation from both parties." At the station, the cold, sterile environment did little to ease the tension. Lily clung to me, her small hands gripping my shirt as we sat across from the officer handling our case. "I need you to stay calm, ma'am. We're going to resolve this as quickly as we can," he'd assured me. But his words did little to comfort my frayed nerves. How can I stay calm when someone just tried to take my daughter away from me in broad daylight? My voice cracked under the strain. "I understand, but for now, we need to ensure the child's safety while we verify both your and the other party's claims," the officer explained. He began typing into his computer before looking up. "I see here that Karen has made similar claims before. It seems there's a history of mental instability." Though this information didn't fully ease my anxiety, it was a start. "Can I make a few calls? I have friends and family who can vouch for me." "Yes, go ahead. We'll need all the proof you can provide," the officer said. I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling, and dialed my sister. "Hey, I need you to come to the station. It's urgent." "What's going on? Are you both okay?" Her voice was filled with worry. "Just come, please. Bring the photo albums, the birth certificate, anything you can find." As I made more calls, rallying support, Karen sat in a corner of the room, murmuring to herself. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her. The officer called me over. "We're going to speak with her again to understand her side. Would you mind staying here with Lily?" I nodded, hugging my daughter closer. I overheard fragments of Karen's conversation with another officer. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of the playground slide. Karen's voice, broken by sobs, reached me. "Ma'am, we understand this is difficult for you, but we need to deal with the facts." The officer noted, "There have been similar incidents reported by you. Can you explain that?" Karen's certainty sent shivers down my spine. How could someone be so utterly convinced yet so wrong? As my family and friends began to arrive, each bringing pieces of our shared history, I started to piece together a timeline of Lily's life on the station's conference table. Photos from birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments spread out like a tapestry of our lives. "See, this is her third birthday party, and here she is on her first day of school," I pointed out to the officer, who examined each document and photo. "We'll need to take statements from everyone," the officer said, motioning for my sister to sit down first. As the hours passed, the stack of evidence grew, each piece reinforcing the truth of Lily's identity and my role as her mother. Yet the fear of what might happen if that wasn't enough lingered in the back of my mind. The station buzzed with activity as my lawyer arrived, folders in hand and a look of determination on his face. "Sarah, I think there's more to this than just mistaken identity. I've been digging, and it seems Karen's ex-husband, Mike, might be involved." "Involved? How?" I asked, my exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Well, it looks like he's been in a bitter custody battle with Karen over their other children. I think he's using her condition to manipulate situations like this to get back at her." "That's monstrous. Using his own children and ex-wife's illness like that?" I couldn't hide my disgust. "Exactly. I think if we can get him to admit it, we can clear this up much faster and help Karen too." "What do you suggest?" "Let's set a trap. We'll pretend you're willing to negotiate some kind of settlement and get him to talk about why he's doing this. We'll record it." "Is that legal?" "With consent in one party states, yes. I'll handle the details. Just follow my lead." We arranged a call with Mike, using the pretext of wanting to avoid further distress for both families. Mike agreed, perhaps eager to manipulate the situation to his advantage. "So, Sarah, I hear you want to settle this without more fuss." "Smart move." Mike's voice oozed Fox concern through the speaker. "Yes, I just want what's best for everyone involved." "Tell me, Mike, why do you think Karen is so convinced my daughter is hers?" I asked, playing into his narrative. "Let's just say sometimes people see what they want to see, especially if they're nudged in the right direction, he replied with a smugness that made my skin crawl. Nudge how exactly? Well, if someone were to show her pictures, tell her stories that align with her delusions, it's not hard to see how she might come to believe it, especially if it helps me in the custody battle. His admission was cold and calculated. My lawyer signaled to me, his phone recording every word. And what is it that you want, Mike? Just my fair share. And if using Karen's instability helps me get that, then so be it. The call ended, and my lawyer wasted no time presenting the recording to the police. They acted swiftly. Mike was arrested, and the evidence of his manipulation led to a re-evaluation of Karen's mental health treatment. In the aftermath, Karen, now understanding the truth, withdrew her claim. She was visibly shaken by the revelation of being used as a pawn in her ex-husband's vendetta. I had no idea. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I never wanted to hurt anyone, especially not a child, she said, her words sincere and filled with remorse. I know, Karen. I hope you get the help you need. I replied softly, my anger replaced by a sense of pity and relief. With Mike in custody and Karen starting proper treatment, I hugged Lily, feeling the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. This ordeal was over, but the journey to healing was just beginning for all of us. Back at home, the warmth of our living room felt like a sanctuary after the storm we had weathered. Lily played on the floor, her giggles soothing my frayed nerves. The doorbell rang, and when I opened it, I found neighbors offering small gestures of support, casseroles, cookies, and even drawings from other children for Lily. Sarah, we just wanted to say how much we admire how you handle everything. If there's anything you need, just say the word. Mrs. Thompson from next door said, her eyes kind. Thank you, everyone. I can't tell you how much your support means to us. It's been tough, but I've been thinking about how we can prevent such things from happening again. I said, feeling a mixture of relief and resolve. What do you have in mind? Mr. Jacobs, always keen on community initiatives, asked. I'm starting a program right here in our community center. It's about teaching parents about safety and legal rights, making sure we can all protect our kids and ourselves. That sounds wonderful, Sarah. Count us in, Mrs. Thompson's son said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. As weeks turned into months, the program took shape with regular meetings. Surprisingly, Karen, now more stable and earnest in making amends, became one of the most active volunteers. During one of the sessions, Karen shared her experience. I was manipulated, and it clouded my judgment. I want to help others see the signs before it's too late, she said, her honesty and effort adding a deep layer of authenticity to the program. Parents listened, moved by her story, and learned to spot the subtle signs of manipulation and mental health issues that could threaten their families. Karen, thank you for being so open. It's not easy to talk about these things. I acknowledged her after a session, genuinely grateful for her contribution. It's the least I can do, Sarah. Thanks for giving me the chance to make things right, she replied. As the program grew, so did Lily and I in our new routine. Every Sunday, we volunteered at the community center together, turning our past ordeal into a proactive mission to help others. Mommy, I like helping. It feels good, right? Lily's innocent remark one Sunday morning made me pause. I realized just how much she'd grown through all this. It does, honey. Helping others gives us strength we never knew we had, I said, smiling down at her as the sunlight caught her hair, turning it golden. It felt like the metaphorical light at the end of our tunnel. We walked hand in hand into the community center, ready to greet another day of making a difference. Our hearts were lighter, and our bonds stronger, a testament to our journey from victims to victors. The story has come to an end, but it leaves us with thought-provoking themes about trust, manipulation, and redemption. How would you handle a situation where someone falsely claims your child as their own? What steps would you take to protect your family while dealing with the accuser, who might be manipulated or suffering from a mental health issue? This scenario isn't just a test of our legal acumen, but also of our empathy and resilience. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your insight could be invaluable to someone facing similar challenges. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and consider subscribing for more discussions like this. Your support helps us bring more of these stories to light. Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy, and this is the story of how my life turned upside down. I never thought I'd be sharing something like this, but here we are. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. At 25, I was thriving as a software engineer at TechFlow Solutions, living with my dad, David, and my stepmom, Karen, in our suburban home. My birth mom passed away from cancer when I was just 5, and dad remarried when I was 12. Karen brought her own children into the mix, Tyler and Ashley, now 19 and 17. Nancy, honey, could you help Ashley with her college applications? She's struggling with the essays. Karen called one evening while I was deep in my coding. Sure, I can spare some time this weekend. Actually, Tyler needs the weekend for his gaming tournament. Maybe next week. That was how it always went. Her kids' needs came first. But it was subtle, wrapped in sweet words and family rhetoric that made it hard to push back. Have you thought about moving out? My best friend Amanda asked over coffee last week. You've got a great job. Dad wants me to stay. Plus, the house has been in our family for generations, I replied. Amanda's expression shifted. Speaking of the house, she leaned closer. James mentioned seeing Karen at the bank yesterday. My boyfriend James works at the local bank and had recently noticed Karen making frequent visits. She's been pushing Dad to put the house in her name, I confided. She says it's for estate planning purposes. Later that evening, I was helping Dad with dinner when Karen glided into the kitchen. Nancy, dear, she said, her voice syrupy sweet, I was going through some old boxes in the attic today and found some interesting family papers. Mom's papers? I perked up, always eager for any connection to my late mother. Oh, all sorts of things, Karen replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Makes you wonder about family secrets, doesn't it? There was something about her tone that sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed. It was Grandma Martha. Come over for tea tomorrow, dear, she said. I made your favorite cookies. Grandma Martha had been my rock since Mom passed. At 75, she was sharp as a tack and saw right through Karen's facade. Your mother would be so proud of you, she told me over tea the next day. You're just like her, strong, smart, and kind. Karen's been acting weird lately, Grandma, dropping hints about family secrets. That woman's always stirring up trouble. Keep your eyes open, Nancy, and remember this house. Your grandfather built it with his own hands. It's your heritage. I nodded, but unease settled in my gut. That night, as I walked past Karen's office, I overheard her on the phone. No, he doesn't suspect anything, she whispered. Yes, I'm working on the house situation. Don't worry, everything's going according to plan. The girl, she won't be a problem much longer. My heart raced. James had been right. I needed to watch Karen closely. I texted Amanda. Emergency wine night needed. Karen's up to something. On my way, she replied instantly. And I'm bringing that file I told you about. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of unraveling a web of lies that would shake our family to its core. The annual Christmas dinner was in full swing at our house. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone was there. Karen had been hitting the wine hard since noon, her face growing redder with each glass. Time for presents, Tyler announced, pulling out his phone. Yeah, Ashley chimed in, especially since this might be our last Christmas altogether. I caught their strange smirks but brushed it off as teenage weirdness. Everyone gathered around the tree, and that's when Karen stumbled to the center of the room. Before we start the gift exchange, she slurred, I have an announcement to make. Dad's face tightened. Karen, maybe we should wait. No, David, they all need to know the truth, Karen announced, her voice wobbling from both drink and venom. She yanked a stack of wrinkled papers from her cardigan. I found these in the attic last week. Love letters between Nancy's mother and her real father. The room went deathly silent. My heart froze. Nancy isn't your daughter, David, Karen sneered, holding the papers up like a prize. Her mother had an affair with a man named Richard. Look at the dates. They match perfectly. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred as Tyler and Ashley circled me, their phones trained on my face, recording every second of my humiliation. That's impossible, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Dad. But Dad just stood there, pale as snow, frozen in place. His silence hit me like a knife to the chest. Karen's words slurred as she pointed a finger at me. I always knew something was off about you. You never quite fit in, and now we know why. Aunt Sarah stepped forward, her tone sharp. Karen, you're drunk. This isn't the time or the place. This is my house. Karen shrieked, her voice piercing. And I want her out. No strangers under my roof. I turned to Dad, desperate. Please say something, I begged, my voice cracking. He finally spoke, his tone hollow. I need time to process this. Process what? Karen snapped, shaking the letters in his face. It's all right here. Pack your things, Nancy. You're not welcome here anymore. The room erupted into murmurs, but I didn't stay to hear them. I stumbled to my car, tears blinding me as I drove to Amanda's apartment. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Tyler and Ashley had already posted clips online. Look how the fake daughter runs away. Family fraud exposed on Christmas. Best present ever, getting rid of the imposter. Amanda opened her door and I collapsed into her arms. Those letters have to be fake, Nancy, she said, her voice firm. We'll figure this out. Later that night, my phone lit up with a text from Dad. I need some time. Please understand. Amanda's jaw tightened as she read it. Some father, she muttered. He doesn't even defend you. I curled up on her couch, shattered. Christmas carols drifted faintly from a neighbor's apartment, a cruel reminder of how quickly my world had fallen apart. The next few days were a blur. Clips of the incident spread like wildfire through our social circle. Friends and relatives sent messages, some supportive, others not. I cut off contact with everyone except Grandma Martha, who immediately moved me into her guest room. I never liked that woman, Grandma muttered over coffee one morning. Did you know she was married 3 times before your father? What? I asked, startled. Dad said she was only married once before. Grandma's eyes narrowed. Oh, honey. She buried those marriages deeper than Jimmy Hoffa. Same pattern every time. Wealthy men with children. And those children, they always became problems. Amanda, ever the investigator, began digging. Look at this, Nancy, she said, sliding her laptop over to me. Karen Thompson, then Karen Williams, then Karen Reynolds, now Karen Mitchell. She's like a black widow of family destruction. James joined the effort, using his position at the bank to uncover more. Nancy, these transactions are sketchy, he said, showing me his findings. Your dad's accounts have regular transfers to offshore accounts, starting right after the Christmas disaster. She's bleeding him dry. My phone buzzed again. Another taunt from Tyler. Hey, fake sis. Just making sure your coworkers know what a fraud you are. My boss called me into their office that afternoon. This needs to stop, Nancy, they said. I know, I replied, barely holding it together. That evening, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Is this Nancy Mitchell? This is Robert Thompson, Karen's first husband. My hands trembled as I put him on speaker for Amanda to hear. She did the same thing to my daughter, Emma, he revealed. Claimed she found evidence Emma wasn't mine. Nearly destroyed our relationship before we uncovered Karen's forgery. She walked away with half my assets before we could prove the fraud. I need a DNA test, I declared. 2 weeks later, the results arrived, 99.9% match with David Mitchell. He was my father. No doubt about it. James burst into Grandma's house that same afternoon, waving more papers. Got it, he exclaimed. Karen's been funneling money through a fake charity. Classic embezzlement, and those letters? She bought them from a vintage store. Here's the receipt. Amanda chimed in, triumphant, and her ex-husbands are all willing to testify. She's done this before, isolating, alienating, and then draining accounts. But she's never faced consequences because no one connected the dots. Until now. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Tyler. Mom's losing it since you left. She's drinking more, talking crazy. Dad's starting to ask questions. Good, I muttered. Let him ask. Just then, another call came through, Karen's second husband. We need to talk, he said. Karen didn't just steal money from us. She forged documents, stole identities. I've been gathering evidence for years, waiting for someone else to see through her act. Amanda gripped my hand. This is it, Nancy. We've got her. It's time to end this, I said, organizing the files. Dad needs to see everything. Grandma Martha nodded, her expression grim. That woman picked the wrong granddaughter to mess with. We arranged a family meeting at Grandma's house. Dad, Tyler, Ashley, and all 3 of Karen's ex-husbands showed up. Karen waltzed in last, her confident smirk faltering as she saw the crowd, and the evidence laid out before her. When Karen walked in and saw everyone gathered, Her confident smirk faltered. Robert Thompson was the first to stand. "Remember me, Karen," he said, his voice cold. Or should I say Karen Williams? Or was it Reynolds back then? Dad's face went pale. "What's he talking about, Karen?" Karen's eyes darted around the room. "David, I can explain." "Let me show you," I interrupted, holding up the files. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. The so-called Christmas letters. Here's the receipt where you bought them from an antique store. Tyler and Ashley shifted uncomfortably, their phones now eerily silent. "And here's my DNA test," I continued, my voice steady. 99.9% match. I am Dad's daughter. Always have been. You little. Karen lunged forward, but James stepped in, blocking her path. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said calmly, "I've documented every suspicious transaction you've made at the bank. Fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. It's all here." Ashley's voice trembled. "Mom, what did you do?" Dad picked up the files with shaking hands, flipping through the damning evidence. His voice was barely audible. 3 previous marriages, all ending in fraud accusations. "Karen, who are you?" "David, I can explain," Karen pleaded. "Save it," Robert interjected. "She gave me the same speech when I caught her stealing from my daughter's college fund." Tyler suddenly stood, his face red with anger. "That's why you kept pushing me not to go to college. Because you were stealing my tuition money." Karen's mask cracked, her composure crumbling. She sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. "Nancy, please," she begged, her voice desperate. "I'm sorry. I was just trying to protect our family." "Our family?" I laughed bitterly. "You and your bank account." Dad straightened up, his expression hard and determined. He looked years older. "I want a divorce," he said firmly, "and I'm pressing charges." "Daddy, no," Ashley cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's still our mom." "A mom who was stealing your future," James pointed out gently. "Check your college accounts." The aftermath was swift and decisive. Dad filed for divorce, and Karen's past victims began coming forward in droves. Her carefully curated life collapsed like a house of cards. 1 year later, I sat in my new office as a senior software engineer. James' ring sparkled on my finger as I skimmed the latest updates. Karen was facing multiple lawsuits, while Tyler and Ashley had chosen to live with their biological father. They refused to speak to her. This Christmas was different. Dad, Grandma Martha, Amanda, James, and even Tyler and Ashley gathered at my new house. There were no hidden agendas, no secret documents, just family, real family. "Merry Christmas, baby girl," Dad said, pulling me into a tight hug. His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry I ever doubted you." Across town, Karen sat alone in her tiny rented studio apartment, surrounded by court summons and lawyer bills. Her schemes had finally caught up with her. And karma? Well, karma had my back. What would you have done if you were in my shoes that night? Would you have stayed quiet and gathered evidence like I did, or confronted Karen in front of everyone? Hey there, I'm Sarah Thompson, a 28-year-old accountant from the suburbs of Chicago. I was sitting at my desk, crunching numbers like any other day when my phone rang. It was a real estate agent asking about the sale of my grandma's house. Confused, I thought, what? That house has been in our family for generations, and as far as I knew, it wasn't for sale. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. That house isn't on the market," I told the agent, my heart racing. "Ma'am, I have the paperwork right here with your signature." My signature? Now I knew something was seriously wrong. I thanked the agent and hung up, my mind spinning. Immediately, I called my sister, Emma. "Hey, Em, quick question. You haven't heard anything about Grandma's house being sold, have you?" There was a pause on the other end, too long of a pause. "Oh, that? Yeah, I was meaning to tell you about that. It's no big deal, really." No big deal? My blood started to boil. Emma had always been the golden child in the family, but this was crossing a line. How could she do something like this without even telling me? I couldn't sleep that night, my mind consumed with thoughts of Emma's betrayal. The next morning, I called Michael, my best friend, and filled him in on everything. "This is serious, Sarah. We need to gather evidence," he said, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "You're right, I'm going to start digging." Over the next few days, I became a detective. First stop, the lawyer's office where the sale documents were signed. I managed to charm the receptionist into showing me the security footage. "Oh, honey, I remember that day," she said as we watched the tape. "Your sister seemed off," kept looking over her shoulder. And there was Emma, nervously signing the papers, alone. Next, I tracked down the real estate agent who had called me. "Yeah, something didn't sit right with me," he admitted. "Your sister was pushy, wanted everything done fast. And when I asked about you, she got all cagey." Armed with this information, I decided to confront Emma at our weekly family dinner. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't hold back any longer. "So, Emma, how's the house sale going?" I asked casually, though my heart was pounding. The room fell silent. Emma's fork clattered onto her plate. "What are you talking about?" Mom asked, looking confused. "Oh, didn't Emma tell you? She sold Grandma's house without my permission." Dad's eyes widened. "Is this true, Emma?" Emma's face turned crimson. "Fine, yes, I sold it. But I had to." "You forged my signature," I shouted. "You don't understand. I needed the money. I've sacrificed so much for this family." Mom jumped in. "Emma, honey, what do you mean? I've always put this family first. I turned down job offers to stay close to home. I've been helping with the bills. And what has Sarah done? Run off to her fancy job and boyfriend." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you kidding me? You've been stealing from Mom and Dad for years." Emma's face went pale. That's not true." "Oh, really? Then explain the missing money from their accounts, the mysterious charges." Dad looked shocked. "Emma, is this true?" Emma burst into tears. "You don't understand. I had debts. Uncle Frank said his investment was a sure thing." The truth came pouring out. Emma had been involved in Uncle Frank's shady schemes, losing thousands. She'd been stealing to cover her losses. "And let's not forget how you sabotaged my job interviews," I added, the anger building inside me. "What? I never." "Cut the crap, Emma. I know you called and gave bad references. You couldn't stand the thought of me being successful," I said, my voice shaking with anger. The room erupted into chaos. Mom was crying, Dad looked shell-shocked, and Emma frantically tried to defend herself. "You're blowing this out of proportion. I did what I had to do. Mom, Dad, you understand, right?" To my disbelief, Mom nodded. "Sarah, maybe you're being too harsh. Emma's clearly been struggling." I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out, ignoring their calls for me to come back. Later that night, I sat with Michael, feeling completely drained. "I can't believe they're still defending her," I said, fighting back tears. Michael squeezed my hand. "We'll figure this out. I've got a buddy who's a handwriting expert. We'll prove the forgery." I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. "And I'm going to talk to Uncle Frank. He might be shady, but he owes me the truth." That night, lying in bed, I felt a mix of sadness and determination. My family might have betrayed me, but I wasn't going to let Emma get away with this. "Game on, sis," I whispered to myself. "You have no idea what's coming." Emma had always been manipulative, but I never thought she'd go this far. It was time to beat her at her own game. The next day, I called her up, trying to sound casual. "Hey, Em, can we talk? I've been thinking about everything and maybe I overreacted." "Really?" she replied, sounding suspicious. "Yeah, I mean family's family, right? Let's grab coffee and talk it out." Over the next few weeks, I played the role of the forgiving sister. It wasn't easy, but I had to gain her trust. Meanwhile, Michael was putting our plan into action. At a family barbecue, Michael casually approached Emma. "I heard Uncle Frank's old cabin might be on the market. I've always liked that place." Emma's eyes lit up. "Oh yeah, it's a great property. I could help you with that." "That'd be awesome. Maybe we could discuss it privately sometime," Michael said, watching as Emma fell right into our trap. Uncle Frank, surprisingly, was in on it too. "I'm sorry, kid," he told me when I confronted him. "I never meant for it to go this far. I'll help you make it right." We set up a meeting between Emma and Uncle Frank, with Frank wearing a wire. "So about that cabin deal," Emma said, not realizing she was being recorded. "We could easily inflate the price. Sarah doesn't need to know the real value." "What about your parents?" Frank asked, fishing for more. "Please," Emma scoffed. "They're clueless. Dad's too passive to question anything, and Mom, well, she always takes my side." I felt sick listening to the recording later, but I knew we needed more. That's when I came up with the idea of the family heirloom. I casually mentioned to Emma that I'd found Grandma's old diamond necklace. It must be worth a fortune, I said, watching her eyes gleam. I'm keeping it in my desk drawer for now. A few days later, Mom called me in a panic. Sarah, I caught Emma going through your room. She said she was looking for an old photo, but she seemed so nervous. Everything was falling into place. Then Dad overheard Emma on the phone, talking about selling the necklace. He was devastated. Finally, it was time for the big reveal. We called a family meeting, supposedly to clear the air. Emma walked in, looking smug. Before anyone could say a word, I stood up. Before we start, I said, there's something you all need to hear. I played the recordings, showed the financial records, and presented statements from people Emma had manipulated over the years. Her face went from confusion to anger, then to fear. You set me up, she screamed. No, Emma, I said, my voice steady. You did this to yourself. As the evidence mounted, her facade cracked completely. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Emma spat, her eyes blazing with fury. Little Miss Sarah, always doing everything right. You have no idea what it's like living in your shadow. I deserve that money, that house, everything. Her venomous rant left everyone in the room stunned. Mom sobbed quietly, Dad looked utterly broken, and Uncle Frank couldn't even bring himself to meet my eyes. Emma, hurling insults and threats, stormed out, slamming the door behind her. As the door shut, I felt an immense weight lift off my shoulders. The truth was finally out. Looking at my shattered family, I knew things would never be the same. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The mask Emma had worn for so long was off. And now we all had to face the harsh reality of who she really was. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, as if we were all waking up from a long, confusing dream. We're so sorry, Sarah, Dad said one evening, his voice thick with regret. We should have seen it sooner. Mom, her eyes filled with tears, nodded. We let Emma manipulate us for years. Can you ever forgive us? I appreciated their apology, but the wounds ran deep. I understand, I said softly. But I think we all need some space to process this. As for Emma, karma hit hard. The forged documents for Grandma's house were nullified, and the property was rightfully returned to me. Michael, ever the lawyer, was in full swing as he laid out the consequences to her. You're facing some serious charges. Fraud, forgery, theft. It's not looking good, Emma, he said. Emma's face was a twisted mix of anger and fear. This isn't fair. I was just trying to. Save it for the judge, I cut her off coldly. Uncle Frank, trying to save his own skin, had spilled everything about their shady dealings, and Emma's web of lies was unraveling fast. In the end, Emma was slapped with probation and hefty fines. She avoided jail, but her life was in shambles. She lost her job, her friends, everything. As for me, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I moved into Grandma's house, determined to honor her memory the right way. It's beautiful, Michael said as we unpacked boxes. He paused, looking around the cozy space. You know, this could be a great place to start our life together. I turned to him, surprised. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Without another word, he dropped to one knee, right there in the middle of the chaos. Sarah Thompson, will you marry me? Through happy tears, I said yes. Life started looking up after that. I got a promotion at work, throwing myself into new projects with renewed energy. Meanwhile, Emma's life became a cautionary tale. The last I heard, she was living in a tiny apartment, struggling to make ends meet. Part of me felt sad, but a bigger part of me knew she was finally facing the consequences of her own actions. The story has come to an end now, but I have a question for you. If you were in Sarah's shoes, would you ever forgive Emma and your parents for their betrayal? Or do you believe that some actions are truly unforgivable, even when it comes to family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and opinions matter, and they might help others dealing with similar situations. If you enjoyed this story of family drama and justice, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, I'm Olivia. I'm 25, working hard to become a nurse, and living with my grandpa, who's been pretty sick lately. It's been tough, especially since my dad passed away 5 years ago. That's when everything changed. My stepmom Sandra completely flipped. After Dad died, it was like she ripped off a mask and revealed who she really was, cold and strict, barely acknowledging me. But when it came to her precious daughter Megan, oh, that was a different story. Megan, my 22-year-old stepsister, is the apple of Sandra's eye. Everything's always about Megan. New clothes, fancy dinners, while I'm barely scraping by, working a part-time job in the hospital cafeteria. Olivia, why can't you be more like Megan? Sandra would say, her voice dripping with disappointment. She's going places, unlike some people. I just roll my eyes and head to Grandpa's room. He's been my anchor through all this chaos. We'd spend hours together, him telling me stories about Dad when he was young, and me sharing my dreams of becoming a nurse. You've got your father's heart, Liv. Don't let anyone dim your light, he'd always tell me. Thankfully, I have my best friend Jasmine and my boyfriend Tyler. They've been my lifeline, especially when things get tough at home. Girl, you need to get out of that toxic house, Jasmine would say over coffee. Sandra's a piece of work. Tyler's always there with a hug and a pep talk. You're stronger than you think, Liv. You've got this. But juggling everything feels like walking a tightrope. I'm up at dawn to check on Grandpa before my shift at the hospital. Then it's off to classes, squeezing in study time whenever I can. After work, I rush home to cook dinner for Grandpa while Sandra and Megan waltz in from their shopping sprees. Oh, you're still here, Sandra would say, like I was a guest in my own home. One night, just as I was about to collapse into bed, I heard a loud thud from Grandpa's room. My heart dropped. Grandpa. I called out, rushing to his door. No answer. I burst in to find him on the floor, barely conscious. Oh my God, Grandpa. I cried, fumbling for my phone to dial 911. Stay with me, please, I whispered, holding his hand as the sirens blared in the distance. The ambulance ride was a blur. I stayed by Grandpa's side, whispering, "You're going to be okay," over and over. At the hospital, they whisked him away, leaving me pacing the waiting room for what felt like hours. Finally, a doctor came over. "Your grandfather's condition is critical. I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. You should prepare yourself." It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Just then, Sandra and Megan strolled in, looking like they had been interrupted at the spa. "What's the situation?" Sandra asked, not even glancing at me. Through gritted teeth, I explained. Megan huffed, glancing at her phone. "Great, now I'm going to miss my surprise party." Sandra patted Megan's arm. "Don't worry, honey, we'll make sure you don't miss a thing." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious right now? Grandpa is dying." Sandra's eyes narrowed, and she grabbed my arm, dragging me into a corner. "Listen, Olivia, you need to go home and handle Megan's party." "What? No way, I'm staying with Grandpa." "This is not a request. Megan's friends are already on their way. You will go home and make sure everything is perfect." I yanked my arm free. "Absolutely not. Grandpa needs me." Her voice turned icy. "You ungrateful little brat. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done, you've made my life hell since Dad died. You will do as I say, or so help me." That's when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Is everything okay here?" It was Tyler. Thank God. Sandra's demeanor changed instantly, turning all syrupy sweet. "Oh, Tyler, how nice of you to come. We're just having a little family discussion." Tyler wasn't buying it. He wrapped his arm around me and asked, "Liv, what's going on?" Before I could speak, Sandra cut in. "Olivia was just leaving to take care of some family business, weren't you, dear?" I squared my shoulders. "No, I wasn't. I'm staying with Grandpa." Sandra's face twisted with rage. "If you don't leave right now, you can consider yourself cut off. No more roof over your head. No more college fund. Nothing." Tyler tensed beside me. "You can't do that." "Watch me," Sandra hissed. My mind raced. Everything I had worked for, my future, my home, was at risk. But then I thought of Grandpa, lying there alone. "Fine," I said, my voice shaking. "Do whatever you want. I'm staying." Sandra's eyes narrowed into slits. "You'll regret this, Olivia. Don't come crawling back when you're out on the streets." She spun on her heel, dragging a protesting Megan with her. Tyler squeezed my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Liv." But as we walked back to Grandpa's room, the weight of what had just happened hit me. I might have lost everything. What was I going to do now? The next morning, I was exhausted, having spent the night in an uncomfortable hospital chair, holding Grandpa's hand. Jasmine showed up with coffee and a sympathetic ear. She did what? Jasmine exclaimed when I told her about Sandra's ultimatum. That witch. I nodded, fighting back tears. I don't know what I'm going to do, Jazz. I can't afford rent on my own, let alone tuition. Jasmine's eyes lit up. Wait a second. Remember when you mentioned Sandra acting weird about the family business? Maybe there's something there. We spent the next few hours huddled over Jasmine's laptop, digging into the business finances. What we found made my blood run cold. Look at these transfers, Jasmine pointed out, her finger hovering over the screen. Large sums were being moved into an offshore account, all authorized by Sandra. My hands shook as I scrolled through the documents. She's been stealing from the company, stealing from us. But that wasn't all. As we dug deeper, we found something even worse. Liv, look at this, Jasmine said in a hushed voice. Your dad's will. The date it was changed, just days before he died. I felt sick. She must have pressured him when he was too weak to resist. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Tyler. Liv, you're not going to believe what I found. He had been looking into Sandra's past. It turned out my stepmom had a history of marrying wealthy men, draining their accounts and moving on to the next victim. She's done this before, Liv, 3 times. I was reeling from all these revelations when a text from Megan popped up. Thanks for ruining my party. Mom told everyone what a selfish cow you are. I couldn't even feel angry. I was just tired. That night, Grandpa took a turn for the worse. I was by his side, holding his hand as he took his last breath. I love you, Grandpa, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. The funeral was a blur. Sandra put on a big show, wailing and carrying on. But I caught her checking her watch, clearly rushing the proceedings. As people started to leave, I overheard her talking to Megan near the refreshment table. Don't worry, sweetie. Once we sell the house and the business, we'll have plenty to set you up in that apartment in the city. My fists clenched. They were planning to sell everything. Over my dead body. I slipped away, my mind racing. I had the evidence of Sandra's embezzlement and I knew about her past. But how could I use it? That's when I spotted my dad's old business partner, Mr. Johnson, standing somberly by the exit. An idea started to form. Maybe, just maybe, I could turn this around. I took a deep breath and walked over to him. Mr. Johnson, there's something I need to talk to you about. It's about the family business. His eyebrows raised. Oh, what about it, Olivia? I glanced over my shoulder, making sure Sandra wasn't within earshot. Not here. Can we meet tomorrow? It's important. He must have seen the urgency in my eyes because he nodded. Of course. My office, 9 a.m. I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in days. I'll be there. As I walked away, I caught Sandra's suspicious gaze. Let her wonder. Her time was running out. The next morning, I met Mr. Johnson at his office. His face grew grim as I laid out everything we'd discovered of Sandra's embezzlement. I suspected something was off. But this is beyond what I imagined, Mr. Johnson said, shaking his head. We hatched a plan. He would approach Sandra with a fake business opportunity, one too tempting for someone like her to resist. A week later, we set the trap. Sandra waltzed into the conference room, Megan in tow. So what's this golden opportunity? Sandra purred, her eyes gleaming. Mr. Johnson laid out the bait, a chance to invest in a new venture with guaranteed high returns. All she had to do was transfer a large sum from the family business account. Of course, we'll need to move quickly, he added. The window of opportunity is small. Sandra barely hesitated. Let's do it. I'll make the transfer right now. The moment she hit send on her laptop, the door burst open. In walked the board members and a detective. Sandra Thompson, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud, the detective announced. The color drained from Sandra's face. This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything wrong. But the evidence was irrefutable. As they led her away, Megan turned to me, shock written all over her face. Olivia, I had no idea. I'm so sorry for everything. I looked at her, feeling nothing but exhaustion. Save it, Megan, we're done. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The board fired Sandra and pressed charges. Then came the bombshell. Grandpa had left me his share of the business. He always believed in you, Olivia, Mr. Johnson said as he handed over the paperwork. Sandra's carefully crafted world crumbled. Her high society friends deserted her, horrified by the scandal. Last I heard, she was facing serious jail time. Megan didn't fare much better. Cut off from Sandra's ill-gotten gains, she had to drop out of her fancy college. She tried reaching out to me a few more times, but I blocked her number. Some bridges stay burned. As for me, I threw myself into my studies. With my inheritance secure, I could focus on becoming the nurse I'd always dreamed of being. Jasmine and Tyler were my rocks through it all. "See, I told you, you're stronger than you knew," Tyler said one night as we celebrated me acing a tough exam. Jasmine raised her glass. "To Olivia, the baddest nurse to be in town." We laughed, and for the first time in years, I felt light. Free. A few months later, I visited Dad and Grandpa's graves. As I laid flowers down, a sense of peace washed over me. "I did it, guys," I whispered. "I made it through." Fast forward to today. I'm thriving in my career at the city's top hospital. The family business is doing better than ever under Mr. Johnson's guidance, with me learning the ropes on the side. As for Sandra and Megan, I caught a news report the other day. Sandra's still tied up in legal battles, trying to appeal her sentence. Megan's struggling to find work, the scandal following her like a bad smell. Me, I'm just getting started. Life threw me some serious curveballs, but I came out swinging. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. Every struggle, every betrayal, it all led me here. Stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next. Now, I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Megan a second chance? Or do you think cutting ties completely was the right move? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and opinions matter. They might help someone else facing a similar situation. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and helps me continue sharing these real-life experiences. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey there, I'm Catherine. I'm 25, still living at home, and my life feels like it's on an endless loop. My sister Melissa watches over me like I'm fragile, and my parents, they treat me like I'm forever 5. "Catherine, honey, did you take your meds?" Mom's voice floats up the stairs for what feels like the millionth time today. "Yes, Mom," I call back, rolling my eyes. My mind drifts to when Melissa and I were kids, inseparable, always giggling and sharing secrets. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Melissa became the golden child, and me, I became the family project. "Time for your checkup," sis, Melissa says, popping her head into my room. She's always here, always watching. Sometimes I wonder if she has a life outside of monitoring mine. "Do we have to go today?" I groan, but it's no use. Before I know it, we're sitting in Dr. Sanders' office, and he's frowning at me like I'm a puzzle he can't solve. "How are you feeling, Catherine?" he asks, concern etched into his face. "Fine," I mutter. It doesn't matter what I say, he always finds something to worry about. Later, I'm staring out my bedroom window, watching the world go by. People my age are out there living, working, gating. And me? I'm stuck in this gilded cage, dreaming of a life that feels out of reach. "Hey, new neighbor alert." Melissa's voice snaps me back to reality. I look out the window and see a guy around my age unloading boxes from a moving truck. "Why don't you go say hi?" Mom suggests, and I almost fall over in shock. Is she actually encouraging me to interact with someone? Heart pounding, I step outside. The guy looks up and flashes a friendly smile. "Hi there, I'm Alex. Just moved in." "I'm Catherine." I managed to say, surprised at how easy it feels to talk to him. "Nice to meet you, Catherine. So any good coffee shops around here? I'm dying for a decent latte." For a second, I'm at a loss. I don't know much about the neighborhood I've lived in my whole life. But instead of retreating, something sparks inside me. You know what? I have no idea, but I'd love to find out. Maybe we could explore together sometime. Alex's face lights up. That'd be awesome. How about this weekend? As I walk back inside, my mind buzzes with possibilities. For the first time in forever, I feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there's more to life than doctor visits and concerned glances. Little did I know, that simple conversation was about to change everything. But that's a story for another day. Stick around, because trust me, things are about to get really interesting. I've been feeling better lately, kind of weird, considering I'm supposed to be this delicate, fragile thing. One night, I sneak onto my laptop and start Googling my symptoms. What I find doesn't add up. Hey, Catherine, what are you doing? Melissa's voice startles me. I slam the laptop shut. Nothing. Just checking emails. She narrows her eyes but doesn't push. As she leaves, I overhear her on the phone with Mom. I don't care if the bills are piling up. Catherine needs that new treatment. Figure it out. My stomach turns. Are they struggling because of me? Later, I'm chatting with Alex over the fence. You should join our book club, he suggests. We're reading To Kill a Mockingbird next week. My heart races at the thought. I don't know if I can. Come on, live a little. It's just down the street at the library. Against my better judgment, I agree. The night of the book club feels like I'm breaking out of prison. But just as I'm about to leave, Melissa blocks my path. And where do you think you're going? Book club. Mom said I could go. Her face tightens. Fine, but be back in an hour. And take your meds before you leave. At the library, I'm nervous at first, but soon I'm lost in the discussion. It feels so normal, so freeing. When I get home, Melissa is pacing. Where have you been? It's been 2 hours. Sorry we lost track of time. It was fun though. Melissa mutters something about irresponsibility and setbacks. But I don't care. For once, I tasted freedom. But I'm too happy to care. The next day, we have an appointment with a new doctor, Dr. Martinez. She frowns as she reviews my charts. This doesn't make sense, she mumbles. Catherine, have you ever been tested for? Melissa interrupts, her voice firm. Dr. Martinez, perhaps we should discuss this privately. As they step out of the room, I notice my pill organizer sitting on the counter. Curiosity gets the better of me and I open it up. Some pills look familiar, but others I don't recognize. I Google the markings and nearly drop my phone. They're just vitamins and some are even sugar pills. What's going on? I whisper to myself, my heart pounding. Just then, Melissa and Dr. Martinez return. Melissa's face is flushed and she's gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles are white. We won't be coming back here, Melissa announces, her voice sharp. Dr. Martinez clearly isn't familiar enough with your case. Dr. Martinez looks like she wants to say something, but before she can, Melissa practically drags me out of the office. On the drive home, my mind is racing. The inconsistent symptoms, the financial struggles, the fake pills, something isn't right. I'm starting to think that my supposed fragile health might be the biggest lie of all. You okay, sis? Melissa asks, glancing at me as she grips the steering wheel. You look a little pale. Maybe we should cancel your plans with Alex this weekend. For the first time, I hear the control in her voice. And for the first time, I push back. No, I'm fine, and I'm going. Melissa's jaw clenches, but she doesn't argue. As we pull into the driveway, I make a silent bow to myself. I'm going to figure out what's really going on, no matter what it takes. I can't take it anymore. I have to tell someone. Later, Alex and I are at the park, and the words tumble out before I can stop them. I think my sister's been lying about my health for years. Alex's eyes widen. That's heavy. What makes you think that? I spill everything. The fake pills, the inconsistent symptoms, Dr. Martinez's confusion. Alex listens, then says, let's dig deeper. My cousin's great with computers. Maybe he can help us look into Dr. Sanders. A week later, Alex shows me what they found. Dr. Sanders isn't just a family doctor, Alex says grimly. He was Melissa's professor in med school. My blood runs cold. That can't be a coincidence. There's more, Alex continues. He lost his license to practice as a GP years ago. He shouldn't be treating you at all. That night, I pretend to be asleep when I hear Melissa on the phone. Dr. Sanders, we have a problem. That new doctor was asking too many questions. No, I handled it, but we need to be careful. Yes, I'll make sure Catherine stays isolated. We can't risk her finding out. My hands shake as I stop the recording. It's all true, my own sister. The next day, I sneak into Melissa's room and find a hidden folder, bank statements, forged prescriptions, and worst of all, a journal detailing her plans to keep me dependent. Oh my God, I whisper, the full extent of her betrayal sinking in. I take photos of everything and rush to Dr. Martinez's office. I knew something was off, she says, examining the evidence. This is serious, Catherine. We need to report this. I'm scared, I admit. Melissa's all I've ever known. Dr. Martinez squeezes my hand. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. Later, Alex introduces me to his sister, Rachel. I'm a lawyer, she explains. What Melissa's done is highly illegal. We can build a solid case, but you need to be prepared for the fallout. I nod, determination replacing fear. I'm ready. That evening, my parents return from their trip. My hands are sweating as I approach them. Mom, Dad, we need to talk. It's about Melissa. Dad frowns. What about her? I take a deep breath. She's been lying to us. About everything. I lay out the evidence, the recordings, the documents, Dr. Martinez's statement. Mom starts crying, and Dad's face turns ashen. How could she do this? Mom sobs. I don't know, I say, my own tears falling. But it stops now. Just then, the front door opens. Melissa walks in, freezing when she sees us all gathered. What's going on? She asks, her eyes darting between us. Dad stands up, his voice shaking. Melissa, we need to talk. As the truth spills out, I watch my sister's carefully constructed web of lies crumble. For the first time in my life, I feel truly free. As Melissa breaks down, begging for forgiveness, I realize this is just the beginning. The road ahead will be tough, but for once, I'm not afraid. I'm ready to live my life, my real life, no matter what comes next. The living room feels like a courtroom as I lay out the evidence. Mom is crying, Dad is pacing, and Melissa is desperately trying to explain it all away. You don't understand, Melissa pleads. I was protecting her. Dad slants his hand on the table. By lying? By stealing from us. Melissa turns to me, her eyes wide, filled with desperation. Catherine, you know I love you. Everything I did was for your own good. I shake my head. No, Melissa. It was for you, always for you. Next, we confront Dr. Sanders. He crumbles faster than a sandcastle at high tide. It was supposed to be temporary, he mumbles. Melissa promised funding for my research if I helped. I never meant for it to go this far. Mom looks at me, her face a mix of guilt and determination. What do you want to do, sweetheart? For the first time in my life, I feel truly in control. I want to live my life, my real life. Rachel, Alex's lawyer sister, helps us build a rock-solid case. As we go through the process, I feel stronger every day. You're doing great, Alex tells me one afternoon. How about we celebrate with some coffee? I know a great little place downtown. I smile, realizing I'm no longer afraid to explore the world. Sounds perfect. Moving day arrives faster than I expected. As I pack up my room, memories flood back, both good and bad. Need any help? Dad asks from the doorway. I nod, fighting back tears. I'm sorry for all of this, Dad. He pulls me into a hug. No, sweetheart. We're sorry. We should have seen what was happening. But we're going to make it right. 6 months later, I'm sipping coffee at my favorite cafe, scrolling through my phone, when a news alert catches my eye. Melissa's been arrested, not for what she did to me, but for fraud at her new job. Old habits die hard, I guess, I mutter. Everything okay? Alex asks, sliding into the seat across from me. I show him the article, Melissa's going to jail. How do you feel about that? I pause, considering. Relieved, I think, and a little sad, but mostly free. Just then, my phone buzzes with a text from Melissa. I'm so sorry, Catherine. Can we talk? I want to make things right. I stare at the message for a long moment before deleting it. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. You know, I say to Alex, I think I'm ready for that adventure we talked about. How does a road trip sound? Alex grins. Sounds perfect. Where to? I laugh, feeling lighter than I have in years. Anywhere. Everywhere. Let's just go and see where the road takes us. As we leave the cafe, I can't help but smile. My life isn't perfect. There's still therapy to work through, trust to rebuild with my parents, and a whole world to explore. But for the first time, it's truly mine. And that's all that matters. Ready? Alex asks, car keys in hand. I take a deep breath, savoring the moment. Ready. As we drive off, the future stretches out before us like an open road, and I can't wait to see where it leads. Catherine's journey to freedom and truth has come to an end. Now we turn to you. If you were in Catherine's shoes, would you ever forgive Melissa for her years of manipulation and deceit? Or is some betrayal too deep for reconciliation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. My name's Christina Johnson, 28, a marketing whiz with big dreams and an even bigger coffee addiction. Just a few months ago, I was stuck at some no-name company going nowhere fast. Then, out of the blue, I landed my dream job at Evergreen Enterprises, a prestigious publishing house run by the Evergreen family. And trust me, this family is a big deal. Robert Evergreen is the top dog. His wife Linda manages the social side of things, and their son Michael. Well, he's married to my sister Emma. Connections, right? First day on the job, and I'm a nervous wreck, sweating bullets as I step through the glass doors. And who do I run into immediately? Robert Evergreen himself. Great. Welcome aboard, Christina. Emma's told us wonderful things about you. Robert greets me, his smile warm but imposing. All I can think is, don't screw this up, girl. To my surprise, the first few days fly by without a hitch. I even hit it off with Alex Chen, my new work buddy. One afternoon by the water cooler, she leans in with a smirk. Girl, you're on fire. The Evergreens can't stop singing your praises. I'm grinning, feeling on top of the world when suddenly, a man strides by. Gorgeous, confident, total dreamboat. My eyes follow him, and Alex notices. That's James Foster. Works for a rival company. Off limits, but oh so drool-worthy. Before I can respond, Vanessa Evergreen, Michael's sister and head of HR, storms past, practically leaving scorch marks in her wake. What's her deal? I ask, raising an eyebrow. Alex just rolls her eyes. Vanessa's not thrilled about the new golden girl in town, she says, but I shrug it off. I'm here to work, not make enemies. Months pass, and I'm killing it. In a meeting with Robert, I pitch a new marketing campaign, heart-pounding. Christina, this is exceptional work. Robert beams. I think you're ready for something bigger. My heart does backflips. I'm all ears, sir. We've got a major project coming up. Could mean big things for the company and for you. I leave his office practically floating, but as I turn the corner, I run into Vanessa. She looks like she's been sucking on a lemon. Congratulations, she says, her voice sugary sweet but her eyes sharp. Looks like having family in high places is paying off for you. I'm about to snap back when Alex swoops in, linking her arm with mine. Come on, superstar. Let's get lunch. I want to hear all about this big project. The project is intense, like a non-stop roller coaster. I'm living on coffee, barely catching daylight, but no pain, no gain, right? During our weekly check-in, Robert smiles at me. Christina, these numbers are impressive. Keep this up and we'll need to talk about your future here. I'm on cloud 9. That is, until I check my phone. 3 missed calls from James. Guilt churns in my gut as I dial him back. Hey, stranger. Remember me? His tone is light, but there's tension underneath. James, I'm so sorry. This project. Yeah, I know. It's important, he interrupts. Just don't forget about the rest of your life, okay? I promise to make it up to him, but as I hang up, something feels off, like something important is slipping away. The next day, I overhear whispers by the copier. I heard she's only here because of her sister's connections, Lisa says in a hushed tone. No way. I thought she was actually good at her job, Tom replies. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Where is this coming from? Later that afternoon, as I head toward the break room, I hear raised voices coming from Michael's office. I know I shouldn't eavesdrop. I knew I shouldn't, but when I heard my name, I couldn't help it. I leaned closer to the door, my heart racing. You can't keep protecting her, Michael. Vanessa's voice was sharp, dripping with venom. Christina's using her family ties to climb the ladder, and everyone knows it. That's ridiculous, Michael shot back, sounding both defensive and exhausted. Christina's one of our best employees. She's earned everything she's gotten here. Oh please, wake up, brother. She's manipulating all of you, and you're too blind to see it. Enough? Michael's voice cut through the air, filled with finality. I won't hear any more of this. Christina stays. End of discussion. I didn't wait to hear more. I practically ran to Alex's desk, pulling her into an empty conference room. My chest felt tight, my mind spinning. Whoa, Chris, you look like you've seen a ghost, Alex said, concern etched in her face. I spilled everything, the rumors, the argument I'd overheard, all of it. As I spoke, her expression darkened. I had a feeling Vanessa was behind this, Alex muttered. Listen, Chris, you need to watch your back. Vanessa's got connections all over the company. Be careful what you say and who you trust. But what am I supposed to do? I whispered, panic creeping in. Just let her spread lies about me. For now, yeah. Keep your head down, do your work. We'll figure this out. I promise. I nodded, trying to calm the storm in my chest, but my thoughts were spiraling. That afternoon, I was knee-deep in spreadsheets when Robert's assistant appeared at my desk, her face unreadable. Mr. Evergreen wants to see you. HR's there too. My stomach dropped. This couldn't be good. I walked into Robert's office, the atmosphere heavy. Robert looked grim, flanked by two stone-faced HR reps. And there, sitting smugly in a corner, was Vanessa, a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. "Christina, please sit down," Robert said, his voice heavy with regret. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We've discovered some disturbing information," Robert began, his words like a sledgehammer to my chest. "According to our records, you have an undisclosed criminal record for fraud." The room spun. "What?" My voice cracked. "That's impossible. I've never." "We have the documents right here," one of the HR reps said coldly, sliding a file toward me. My hands trembled as I flipped through the papers. They were wrong. It had to be a mistake. This isn't true. I've never been arrested, let alone convicted of fraud. But my protests fell on deaf ears. Robert's face twisted with a pained expression. "I'm sorry, Christina. You're suspended pending a full investigation." The words hit me like a freight train. Numb, I stumbled out of his office, my world crashing around me. At home, I called Emma, my last hope for support. My voice broke as I explained. "Em, you have to help me. They think I'm a criminal." There was a long, painful pause. "Chris, is it true?" My heart shattered. "How can you even ask me that? You're my sister." "I know, but," Michael's family is saying. "You believe them over me? Your own flesh and blood." The argument escalated, our words sharp, irreparable. By the time I hung up, I felt more alone than I'd ever been in my life. A few days later, forcing myself to run errands, I literally ran into someone outside the grocery store. "I'm so sorry," I mumbled, not even looking up, until I froze. "Christina?" A familiar voice said. "It's Rachel. Rachel Torres. She used to work at Evergreen." The recognition dawned in her eyes. "Are you okay? You look like hell." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, that's what being framed and suspended does to a girl." Over coffee, I spilled everything. Rachel listened, her expression growing darker with each word. "Christina, the same thing happened to me," she said quietly, her voice tinged with regret. "One day, there were discrepancies in my work. Accusations of misconduct. I was gone before I knew what hit me." "Why?" I asked, my throat tight. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "I think it was Vanessa. I was up for a promotion she wanted. Next thing I knew, I was out." A spark of hope ignited in my chest. "Rachel, would you be willing to go on record about this?" She hesitated for a long moment, then nodded. It's time someone stood up to her. I called Alex immediately, my pulse racing as we met at a dimly lit bar, far from Evergreen's reach. "We need to dig deeper. Vanessa's done this before, hasn't she?" Alex said, her eyes gleaming with determination. "If there's a pattern, we'll find it." We spent the next week digging through records, calling former employees, and piecing together a disturbing picture. Vanessa had been manipulating files, fabricating complaints, and orchestrating dismissals, all to eliminate anyone who stood in her way. The more we uncovered, the more my resolve hardened. "It's time to fight fire with fire," I muttered, typing furiously on my laptop. Together, Alex and I compiled everything we had, emails, testimonies, discrepancies, and I hit send on an anonymous email to the board, detailing every HR irregularity we'd uncovered. There was no turning back now. The day of the board meeting arrived, and I paced outside the room, my heart hammering in my chest. Alex gave me a reassuring thumbs up as she slipped inside. Her position hadn't been compromised, so she was our inside informant. Moments later, the door burst open. "Miss Johnson, the board requests your presence," a stern-faced assistant announced. I walked in, my chin held high, facing a room full of wide-eyed, shocked faces. Vanessa, sitting at the end of the table, looked like she'd seen a ghost. What is she doing here? She hissed, but Robert silenced her with a raised hand. Christina, he began, his voice thick with regret. We owe you an apology. Our internal audit has uncovered discrepancies. We'd like to hear your side. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm here to clear my name and to expose the real fraud in this company. For the next hour, I laid out every piece of evidence we had uncovered, the manipulated records, the fabricated complaints, the targeted dismissals. Every trail led back to Vanessa. She sputtered denials, but with each document I presented, the cracks in her facade deepened. The final blow came when the door opened and Rachel, along with 3 other former employees, walked in. Their testimonies were damning. This is ridiculous, Vanessa shrieked, her voice desperate. You can't believe these disgruntled ex-employees over me. Actually, Alex chimed in, stepping forward with a cool confidence. We can. Especially with these. She produced a flash drive, holding it up for everyone to see. Copies of the files you tried to delete, Vanessa. Oops. Chaos erupted in the room. By the time the dust settled, Vanessa was being escorted out, her career in shambles. I watched, feeling a mix of vindication and relief, as Robert approached me. He looked older, weary. Christina, he said, his voice heavy with guilt. We've made a terrible mistake. We'd like to offer you reinstatement, along with a substantial promotion and compensation for what you've been through. For a moment, I was tempted. But then I remembered the doubt, the betrayal, how easily they believed a lie over me. I shook my head. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Evergreen, I said softly, but firmly, but I think it's time for me to move on. Leaving Evergreen Enterprises behind felt like shedding old skin. I quickly landed a job at a cutting-edge startup, convincing them to hire Alex too. We built something new together, a fresh start. Rebuilding my relationship with Emma, though, was harder. We met at a small cafe, both of us nervous. Chris, I'm so sorry, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I should have believed you. You're my sister. I took a deep breath, reaching across the table to take her hand. We'll figure it out, Em, I replied, giving her hand a squeeze. She squeezed back. Michael and I were separating. This whole mess made me realize some hard truths about my life. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my new role, determined to move forward. Then one morning, while scanning the news, a headline caught my eye. Evergreen Enterprises faces class action lawsuit from former employees. I couldn't help but smile. Karma, indeed. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was the sweetest victory of all. As for your question, if I were in Christina's shoes, I think I'd walk away too. Trust, once shattered, is hard to rebuild, especially when it's been undermined by betrayal at such a high level. It's not just about the job or the promotion. It's about knowing the people you work for have your back. To trust a company again after such a betrayal, it would take full accountability, deep systemic change, and genuine effort to rebuild that trust. What about you? What would it take for you to trust a company again after something like this? Would you have accepted Evergreen's offer? Hey there, I'm Olivia Johnson, 28 years old and a proud elementary school teacher. Let me paint you a picture of my life. Teaching third graders is my passion, but lately, home has been way more stressful than managing a classroom full of kids. It all started 3 years ago when my dad, Tom, married Karen. At first, I was hopeful, a new mom, new siblings, Brad and Megan. It could have been great, right? Wrong. From day one, something was off. Karen had this sugary sweet exterior, but there was always this undercurrent of dismissiveness, like I was just an afterthought. Olivia, sweetie, she'd say, her voice thick with fake concern. Are you sure you want to wear that to dinner? It's just, never mind. And suddenly, I feel like a kid playing dress up, questioning my own choices. But I brushed it off, determined to make this blended family work. Then there were Karen's golden children. Brad, 30, some big shot in finance, and Megan, 26, supposedly the next big thing in fashion design. And me? Just the stepdaughter who topped third grade, hardly worth mentioning. Last week, though, things went from mildly irritating to downright bizarre. Karen announced a fancy dinner party to celebrate Brad's big promotion. When I walked in, the house had been transformed, fancy tablecloths, crystal glasses, the works. Karen, Brad, and Megan were dressed to the nines, like they were about to hit a red carpet. Dad looked uncomfortable, stuffed into a suit that was definitely Karen's choice. We all sat down to eat, and that's when things got weird. The smell from my plate was off. Everyone else had gourmet-looking steaks, but my plate was piled high with this mushy brown stuff. Karen, I started, but she cut me off. Now, Olivia, no fuss. I'm sure it's delicious. Bon appetit, she chimed, all fox sweetness. I took a hesitant bite and immediately gagged. The taste, it couldn't be, but as I glanced around the table, seeing Brad and Megan's smirking faces, Karen's innocent expression, and Dad's cluelessness, it hit me. Dog food. They were feeding me actual dog food. That was the final straw. As I sat there, humiliation burning through me, I realized this wasn't just petty anymore. This was cruel, calculated. I wasn't going to be their family punching bag any longer. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. All eyes turned to me, a mix of confusion, amusement, and Karen's fake concern. Olivia? Dad finally spoke up. Is everything okay? I looked from him to Karen, then to my smug step-siblings, and made a decision. This ended now. No, I said, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside. No, everything is not okay. The tension in the room spiked. Karen's saccharine smile faltered for a split second before she regained her composure. Olivia, darling, she cooed, whatever do you mean? I took a deep breath. This, I gestured to my plate, is dog food. You serve me dog food while everyone else gets a gourmet meal. The room erupted. Brad and Megan burst into laughter, making no effort to hide their amusement. Dad looked bewildered, darting his eyes between me and Karen. As for Karen, she gasped dramatically. Oh my, how could this have happened? She exclaimed, hand to her chest. I must have mixed up the plates. What a silly mistake. But I wasn't buying it. The glint in her eye told me everything I needed to know. This was no accident. Cut the act, Karen, I said, my voice firm. This isn't the first time you've tried to humiliate me, but it will be the last. I turned to my dad, hoping, just hoping, for some recognition, some support. In my dad's eyes, I could see nothing but confusion. He just sat there, lost and uncomfortable. Dad, I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice, can't you see what's happening? How long are you going to let this go on? Before he could answer, Brad cut in, his tongue dripping with mockery. Oh, come on, Olivia. Learn to take a joke. You're always so sensitive. Megan chimed in, nodding along with a smirk. Yeah, it's not our fault you can't handle a little family fun. Family fun? My cheeks burned with a mix of anger and humiliation. This was their idea of fun, treating me like I was beneath them, less than human. In that moment, something inside me snapped. For years, I had tried to fit in, to be the perfect stepdaughter, to make this blended family work. But enough was enough. Fun? I said, my voice rising. You think this is fun, treating me like this, making me feel unwelcome in my own family? Well, congratulations. You've succeeded. I'm done. I grabbed my purse and marched toward the door, ignoring Karen's protests and my dad's weak attempts to call me back. As I drove home, my mind raced. This couldn't go on any longer. Something had to change, but what? How could I make them see the truth about Karen and her manipulative kids? How could I wake my dad up to the reality of the situation? One thing was clear. I couldn't do this alone. I needed help, and I knew just who to call. My best friend, Rachel, had always been there for me, and right now, I needed her more than ever. Pulling into my driveway, hands trembling, I reached for my phone. It was time to fight back, to expose the truth about my so-called family. Rachel's voice crackled through the phone, filled with concern. Olivia, that's awful. We have to do something about this. Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me out of the pit of despair I'd been sinking into. You're right, I said, feeling determination slowly replace my anger. But how? We investigate, Rachel said, a spark of excitement in her tone. If Karen's capable of this, who knows what else she's hiding? That conversation lit a fire in me. The next day, I started my secret mission. I kept a detailed log of every interaction, every snide comment, every mistake that always seemed to target me. But as I dug deeper, I uncovered something far more sinister than I ever expected. It began with a misplaced bank statement. Dad had always been meticulous with his finances, but lately he seemed distracted, less in control. The statement showed large transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. My curiosity piqued. I did some digging. What I found made my blood run cold. Karen had been siphoning money from my dad's accounts, slowly draining his life savings. And that was just the beginning. One evening, I overheard Brad on the phone, his voice low and urgent. "We need to move the money now. The feds are getting too close." The feds? What had Brad gotten himself into? I called in a favor from a friend who worked in finance, and what she told me left me reeling. Brad's big promotion was a lie. He was knee-deep in a Ponzi scheme, using my dad's stolen money to keep it afloat. As for Megan, her designer clothes and flashy lifestyle suddenly made sense. A little more digging revealed she had been embezzling from her workplace, funneling the stolen money into high-stakes online gambling. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they painted was horrifying. My entire family was built on lies, manipulation, and greed. I felt sick. How could I have been so blind? How could my dad not see what was happening right under his nose? But as the shock wore off, it was replaced by a new emotion: rage. Pure, white-hot rage. I called Rachel, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "You won't believe what I found out," I said, spilling everything. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Olivia," Rachel said, her voice steely with resolve, "we need to take these people down." In that moment, something shifted inside me. I was done being the victim, done letting Karen and her family walk all over me and my dad. "You're right," I said, a plan already forming in my mind. "And I know exactly how we're going to do it." As I hung up the phone, a surge of energy rushed through me. The game had changed. No more playing nice, no more turning the other cheek. It was time for Olivia Johnson to fight back. And this time, I was playing for keeps. The day of reckoning dawned bright and clear. With Rachel by my side, we put our plan into action. First stop, Brad's company. "I have information about fraudulent activities within your organization," I said, my voice disguised as I spoke to the ethics hotline. I provided just enough details to set their investigators on the right path. Next, we tackled Megan's workplace. An anonymous email, backed with carefully chosen evidence of her embezzlement, landed directly in her boss's inbox. But the hardest part came last. Dad. I found him in his study, looking older and more worn than I had ever seen him. "Dad," I began gently, "we need to talk." For the next hour, I laid everything bare: Karen's financial manipulations, Brad's Ponzi scheme, Megan's theft. With each revelation, I watched the scales fall from his eyes. I can't believe this," he whispered, his voice breaking. "How could I have been so blind?" "It's not your fault, Dad," I assured him. "But now that you know, what are you going to do?" His response was immediate and resolute. "I'm ending this. All of it." The following weeks were a whirlwind. Brad was arrested at his office, led out in handcuffs as his Ponzi scheme unraveled. Megan was fired and charged with embezzlement, her glamorous lifestyle crumbling around her. Karen, suddenly without her financial safety net and facing my father's firm decision to divorce, was forced to move out. The last I heard, she was living in a small apartment, her grand schemes reduced to nothing but dust. As for Dad and me, we began the long process of rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were tough conversations, tears, moments of frustration. But with every passing day, we grew closer, stronger. Months passed. I threw myself into teaching, finding joy in my students' progress and in the supportive community I had built at school. Rachel, as always, remained my rock, ready with a listening ear or a word of encouragement. One sunny afternoon, as Dad and I sat on the porch of our now peaceful home, he turned to me with a smile. "You know, Olivia," he said, "I'm proud of you, not just for uncovering the truth, but for the person you've become despite everything." I felt warmth spread through my chest. "Thanks, Dad. I'm just glad we're here now." As we sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized something profound. The family I had longed for, the acceptance I had craved. I had it all along. It just took removing the toxic influences to see it clearly. My story isn't one of revenge, but of justice and personal growth. I didn't just survive, I thrived. And as I looked toward the future, I knew the best was yet to come. Now I have a question for you. If you were in Olivia's shoes, would you have exposed your toxic family members, knowing it could potentially destroy your relationship with your father? Or would you have stayed quiet to maintain family peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below. your perspective. Hey everyone, I'm Miriam. I'm 28, working hard as a junior accountant at a local firm. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I come from this big, loud family that's always gone on and on about how tight we are. Family first, they'd say. Yeah, right. Anyway, my life took a crazy turn when I met James at this charity event. He was tall, dark, and handsome, the whole package, and as I found out later, loaded. We hit it off right away. Miriam, you won't believe this. My mom squealed when I told her about James. Our little girl dating a businessman. At first, everyone was over the moon. Aunt Linda was already planning our wedding. We'll have it in the backyard, she said, save on venue costs. But things changed once they realized how successful James really was. That's when it started to get weird. James and I fell hard for each other, and within a year, we were saying I do. The wedding was perfect, except for the odd looks I kept getting from some of my relatives. After the honeymoon, James dropped a bombshell. Miriam, how would you like to work for me? I could really use someone with your skills. I was floored. Are you serious? That would be amazing. But when I told my family, you'd think I'd committed a crime. Oh, so now you're too good for your old job? My cousin Tom sneered. Don't forget where you came from, Uncle Robert warned. It hurt, but I tried to brush it off. I was happy in love, and my career was taking off. Who cared what they thought? Then, Grandma passed away. It hit me hard. She had always been my biggest supporter. But at the will reading, I got the shock of my life. To my granddaughter, Miriam, I leave. The lawyer paused, flipping through papers. Nothing. What? I gasped. There had to be a mistake. Aunt Karen's voice was dripping with venom. No mistake. You're not real family anymore, Miriam. You've changed. Yeah, Uncle Robert chimed in. You've got your rich husband now. What do you need Grandma's stuff for? I couldn't believe it. My own family cutting me out because I married well and got a good job. It felt like a bad dream. I'm still me, I protested. I haven't changed. Save it, Miriam, Cousin Sarah snapped. Go back to your mansion and your fancy job. You don't belong here anymore. I left that reading in a daze, my world turned upside down. The family I thought I could always count on had just shown their true colors. And they were ugly as hell. As I drove home, tears streaming down my face, I realized this was just the beginning. My so-called family had drawn a line in the sand, and I was on the wrong side of it. But if they thought I was going to roll over and take this, they had another thing coming. I decided to confront my family head-on. Big mistake. Can we talk about what happened at the will reading? I asked Aunt Karen over the phone. There's nothing to discuss, Miriam. You made your choice when you married into money. I'm still part of this family. I tried to reason with her. I haven't changed. Save your breath. We all know you think you're better than us now. And with that, she hung up on me. Unbelievable. I tried reaching out to others, but I kept hitting a brick wall, cold shoulders, snide remarks, you name it. Then, out of the blue, I got a text from Sarah. Meet me at Joe's Diner. 3 p.m. Come alone. When I got there, Sarah was a bundle of nerves. Miriam, I can't take it anymore. You need to know the truth. What truth? She leaned in and whispered, Uncle Robert, he's behind all of this. My jaw dropped. What do you mean? He convinced Grandma to change her will just weeks before she died. Said he didn't need the money anymore. I couldn't believe it. But why? Sarah's eyes darted around nervously. He's been embezzling from the family business for years. He needed to cover his tracks. My head was spinning. Uncle Robert, the family's golden boy, a thief. There's more, Sarah continued. He's been turning everyone against you, spreading rumors, twisting your words. It all started to make sense, the cold shoulders, the nasty remarks. Thanks for telling me, Sarah, but why are you risking this? Sarah asked, a sad smile on her face. Because it's not right, and I miss my cousin. As the days passed, I noticed more and more family members ghosting me. Even Lisa, my ride or die since kindergarten, stopped returning my calls. Lisa, it's me again. Can we please talk? Straight to voicemail. I tried reaching out to my parents, hoping they'd take my side. Mom, Dad, you can't seriously be okay with this. Dad sighed. Honey, maybe it's best to let sleeping dogs lie for the sake of family peace. Family peace. They're treating me like a pariah. Mom patted my hand. It'll blow over, sweetie. Just give it time. I couldn't believe it. Even my own parents were choosing the path of least resistance. Weeks later, I caught wind of a family gathering. No invite for me, of course. Still, I decided to swing by, hoping to catch someone willing to talk. As I approached the house, I heard raised voices coming from the backyard. I crept closer, hiding behind the fence. Selling the business is our only option. Uncle Robert's voice carried over. Aunt Karen sounded panicked. But what about our jobs? The family legacy. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made, Robert replied smoothly. Besides, with the sale, I'll be able to redistribute some assets. My blood ran cold. He was planning to sell the family business, the one my grandfather built from the ground up. But Robert, another voice chimed in. What about the other employees? Our cousins, nephews, nieces. Collateral damage, Robert dismissed. They'll find other jobs. I'd heard enough. My hands shook as I snuck away. Robert wasn't just content with turning the family against me. He was ready to throw everyone under the bus to save his own skin. As I drove home, my mind raced. I had to do something, but what? I was the family outcast now. Who would believe me? One thing was clear. The Uncle Robert I thought I knew was a fraud, and I needed to expose him before he destroyed everything our family had built. I couldn't just sit back and watch Robert ruin everything. I had to act, but I needed to be smart about it. That's when I hatched my plan. James, honey, I need a favor, I said one night over dinner. What's up, babe? I need access to some financial analysis tools. It's for a personal project. James raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Just be careful, okay. With those tools, I started digging, but I needed more. So I reached out to my old buddy Mike from my previous accounting gig. Mike, I need your help. Off the books. Miriam, it's been ages. What's going on? I spilled the beans about Robert's embezzlement. That sleazeball. Count me in. For weeks, we pored over financial records, tracing every cent. But we needed an inside track, and that's where Cindy, Robert's assistant, came in. I accidentally bumped into her at the coffee shop near their office. Oh my gosh, Cindy, it's been forever. We got to chatting, and soon we were having regular coffee dates. I started fishing for info. So how's work? Is Uncle Robert keeping you busy? Cindy rolled her eyes. Girl, you have no idea. The late nights, the secret meetings, something big's going down. Jackpot. Meanwhile, at James's company, things were heating up. Miriam, we're on the verge of losing our biggest client, Megacorp. We need this deal. Our entire key forward depends on it, James said, stress evident in his voice. I spent nights poring over their financials, finding ways to sweeten the deal. Finally, I called a meeting with Megacorp's CFO. Listen, Bob, I know you've got other offers, but look at these projections. I laid out my plan, showing how our partnership could boost their profits by 30% in the first year alone. Bob's eyes widened. Dan, Miriam, this is impressive. We sealed the deal that afternoon. James was over the moon. Miriam, you just saved our asses. How would you like to be our new CFO? I was floored. Are you serious? Dead serious. You've more than earned it. News of my promotion spread like wildfire. Suddenly, my phone was blowing up with messages from family members who'd been ghosting me for months. Congrats, cuz. We should catch up, texted Lisa. Aunt Karen called, all sugary sweet. Miriam, darling, we're so proud of you. I kept my responses polite but brief. I had bigger fish to fry. Finally, after weeks of late nights and secret meetings, I had everything I needed. Financial records, witness statements, and recordings of Robert's shady deals. I sat at my desk, staring at the mountain of evidence. This was it, the moment of truth. I picked up my phone and typed out a message to the family group chat, the one I'd been booted from months ago. Family meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. It's about the future of our family business. Everyone needs to be there. I hit send, my heart pounding. There was no turning back now. Tomorrow, I'd expose Robert for the fraud he was. Consequences be damned. As I got ready for bed, I couldn't help I felt a mix of anxiety and determination as I prepared to drop a bombshell on my family. Sometimes you have to break things to fix them. I just hoped that when the dust settled, there would be something left to salvage. The day of the family meeting arrived, and I felt like I was going into battle. As I walked into Grandma's old house, now Uncle Robert's, the chatter died down. All eyes were on me. Well, well, look who decided to grace us with her presence, Aunt Karen sneered. I took a deep breath. Thanks for coming, everyone. I know you're wondering why I called this meeting. Uncle Robert stood up, feigning concern. Miriam dear, if this is about the inheritance, I cut him off. It's about the future of our family business and your crimes. The room erupted into chaos. I raised my voice to be heard over the din. I have proof that Uncle Robert has been embezzling money from the family business for years. I began laying out the evidence: financial records, witness statements, recordings. With each revelation, the color drained from Robert's face. This is preposterous, he sputtered. You can't believe this gold digger. But the proof was irrefutable. I played a recording of Robert discussing his plans to sell the business. You were going to sell our legacy? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Robert made a dash for the door, but it burst open before he could reach it. 2 police officers walked in. Robert Johnson, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud. As they led him away in handcuffs, the room fell silent. Then all hell broke loose. Aunt Karen was the first to approach me, tears in her eyes. Miriam, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. I held up a hand. Save it, Aunt Karen. I'm glad the truth is out, but I can't forget how quickly you all turned on me. One by one, relatives came up to apologize, asking for help, jobs, money, you name it. I'm sorry, but no, I said firmly. I'm not here to be your safety net. I will, however, help salvage the family business. I'll work with Sarah and anyone else who treated me decently, but this is a professional courtesy, nothing more. As the dust settled and people filed out, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had done what I came to do. Weeks passed, and news of Robert's arrest spread. Our family became the talk of the town, but I was done with the drama. James and I sat on our patio, enjoying a quiet evening. You know I'm proud of you, he said, squeezing my hand. You stood up for what's right, even when it was hard. I smiled, feeling at peace for the first time in months. Thanks, babe. I couldn't have done it without you. So what now? He asked. I grinned. Well, CFO, I think it's time we took that vacation we've been talking about. How does Bali sound? As we clinked glasses and started planning our trip, I reflected on my journey. I lost the family I thought I had, but I gained something far more valuable: self-respect and the strength to stand up for myself. The family business was on the mend, with Sarah at the helm and me advising from afar. Some relatives were still trying to mend fences, but I kept my distance. I had learned the hard way that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. Looking at James, I realized I had everything I needed right here. We were building our own family, one based on love and mutual respect. And as for the future, well, bring it on. I was ready for whatever came next. As the sun set on another chapter of my life, I felt nothing but excitement for the new one beginning. Sometimes you have to lose what you thought you wanted to find what you really need. And me? I had found my happily ever after on my own terms. Now I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven your family and let them back into your life? Or would you have maintained your distance like I did? Think about it. Family is supposed to have your back, right? But what happens when they betray you? Is blood really thicker than water, or is that just something we tell ourselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm dying to hear what you would do in this situation. And hey, if you enjoyed this roller coaster of family drama, why not hit that like button? It helps more people find our channel. Oh, and if you want to catch more stories like this, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Hey, everyone, I'm Lisa. I began, flashing a confident smile. I'm 32, running my own tech startup, and honestly, I'm feeling on top of the world right now. And why wouldn't I? My company, Technova, was everything I had dreamed of. 5 grueling years of blood, sweat, and tears were finally paying off. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. On the personal front, things were just as sweet. I was engaged to Mark, this adorable software engineer who had been my rock through every high and low. We were planning our wedding, and I couldn't have been more excited. Life was perfect, or so I thought. Then I met Vanessa. Mark had mentioned his sister in passing. A bit of a drifter, unemployed, nothing to worry about. But nothing could have prepared me for Hurricane Vanessa. So Lisa, Vanessa began with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mark tells me you run your own company. That must be exciting. Her gaze was sharp, almost too interested. I nodded, feeling a mix of pride and wariness. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. We're in the tech sector, focusing on AI-driven solutions for small businesses. Fascinating. Her eyes gleamed as she leaned in. What kind of growth are you seeing? I hesitated. Mark gave me a reassuring nod, and I continued. We've seen about 200% growth in the last year. It's been wild. Vanessa's eyes widened. That's incredible. How do you manage that kind of expansion? I laughed, a little too nervously. Lots of late nights and coffee. We've got a great team, though. That makes all the difference. As the conversation went on, Vanessa's questions kept coming. More probing, more personal. At first, I was flattered. It felt good to talk shop with family, but as the night dragged on, something felt off. She started asking about our investors, our profit margins, even our security protocols. Just curious, she said with a laugh that sent a chill down my spine. Never know when I might want to start my own business, right? On the morning of my wedding, I was a bundle of nerves and excitement, my mind racing with anticipation. My best friend and maid of honor, Jenny, helped me into my dress. You look stunning, Lisa, she said, smoothing out the fabric. Mark is going to lose it when he sees you. I grinned, but something in her expression made me pause. What's wrong? Jenny bit her lip. It's probably nothing, but there's some weird vibes out there. People are whispering. My stomach tightened. Whispering about what? Just stuff about Technova. How you got your startup money. It's probably just pre-wedding jitters making people gossipy. I forced a smile, but my heart was pounding. At the reception, things got worse. Snippets of conversation floated through the air, stabbing at my chest. I heard she scanned her investors. Apparently, she stole classified info from her old job. My head spun. Where was this coming from? Then I saw her, Vanessa, standing with a group of guests, her voice loud and clear. I just think people should know the truth about Lisa's business practices, she said, her words dripping with venom. Fury surged through me. I marched over, keeping my smile tight and forced. Vanessa, can we talk? Privately? We stepped into a quiet corner, and I didn't waste a second. What the hell are you doing? I hissed. Vanessa feigned innocence, her eyes wide. Just sharing what I've heard. People have a right to know, don't they? No, I spat, barely keeping my voice steady. They don't have a right to lies. To the garbage you're spreading. Her expression hardened, her eyes narrowing to slits. Are they lies, Lisa? Or are you just mad you got caught? Before I could even respond, Mark appeared, his eyes darting between us. Everything okay? I turned to Mark, desperation flooding my voice. Mark, your sister is spreading lies about me, about Technova. Mark's face twists with confusion. What? Vanessa, is this true? Vanessa immediately dons a hurt expression, her voice dripping with feigned concern. I'm just worried, Mark. The things Lisa told me about her business, well, they seemed shady. I didn't want to say anything, but I was scared she might be taking advantage of you. Taking advantage. My voice rises, teetering on the edge of shouting. Mark, you know me. You know how hard I've worked. Mark shifts uncomfortably, glancing around. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Let's not make a scene. A misunderstanding. I can barely believe the words coming out of his mouth. Your sister is accusing me of fraud on our wedding day, and you're worried about making a scene. Vanessa smirks, folding her arms with smug satisfaction. See how defensive she gets. Mark? Makes you wonder what she's hiding. I'm shaking now, trembling with rage and disbelief. I'm not hiding anything. My voice cracks as I turn to Mark, pleading. Mark, please, you have to believe me. He raises his hands, trying to placate me. Look, let's just enjoy the reception. We can sort this out later. I stare at him, my heart sinking. Sort it out later? This is our wedding day, and you're letting your sister ruin it with lies. Mark sighs. Lisa, please. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Tears burn in my eyes as I look at him, my voice barely a whisper. Your sister is trying to destroy my reputation, and you're acting like it's nothing. The rest of the reception blurs around me. I force a smile for the guests, but inside I'm seething. As we leave for our honeymoon, the tension between Mark and me is palpable, hanging thick in the air. In the limo, I can't hold back any longer. We need to talk about what happened. Mark rubs his temples, looking exhausted. Can't we just enjoy our honeymoon? A cold wave washes over me, chilling me to the core. This wasn't the man I thought I married. As we drive to the airport, a realization settles over me like a lead weight. Our relationship might be in more trouble than I ever imagined. Bali's sun blazes overhead, but all I feel is the chill creeping through me. My phone won't stop buzzing. It's Jake, my business partner. The 10th call. Finally, I pick up. Lisa, thank God. We're in deep. Jake's voice is frantic. Someone's trying to take over the company. My blood turns to ice. What? How? They're exploiting the loophole in our investor contracts, the one we were going to fix next month. Lisa, they know everything. Our financials, our plans, even that patent we were keeping under wraps. I feel sick. Jake, it's Vanessa. It has to be. She must have gotten into my files when she stayed at our place before the wedding. Jake's voice trembles. Your sister-in-law? Lisa, what do we do? I glance at Mark, who's watching me with concern. My heart hardens. I'm coming home. Book me the next flight. The plane ride home is a blur of panic and planning. When I land, Jake is waiting, looking haggard and worn. We rush to the office only to walk straight into chaos. Employees are panicking, investors are calling nonstop, and in the middle of it all, I see her. Vanessa, strutting around as if she owns the place. She spots me, her lips curling into a wicked smirk. Oh, Lisa. Back so soon from your honeymoon? Don't worry, I've been taking good care of things while you were gone. Fury boils over inside me. I march up to her, my voice shaking with rage. Get out of my office, Vanessa. Now. She laughs, the sound cruel and sharp. Your office? I think you'll find that ownership of this company is up for debate. Before I can respond, I hear Mark's voice behind me, sharp and full of confusion. Lisa, what the hell is going on? I spin around to see Mark standing in the doorway, his face a mix of anger and bewilderment. Mark, what are you doing here? He glares at me, his voice low and tense. I came to talk some sense into you. Vanessa told me everything. Vanessa slides up beside him, placing a hand on his arm, her smile smug. I'm so glad you're here, Mark. Maybe you can convince Lisa to do the right thing and hand over the company peacefully. I stare at the two of them, feeling the ground crumble beneath me. My husband and his sister, united against me. In that moment, I realize I'm truly alone in this fight. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. Vanessa, I know exactly what you're trying to do. It stops now. Vanessa scoffs, crossing her arms. You can't prove anything, Lisa. I meet her gaze, cold and unflinching. Maybe not yet. But I will, I say, turning to Mark, my voice steely. I can't believe you're falling for her lies. Mark looks torn, his face a mixture of guilt and confusion. Lisa, I don't know what to believe anymore. I shake my head, heart hardening. Then step back and let me handle this. I turn to Vanessa, locking eyes with her. You have 24 hours to drop this takeover attempt, or I'll bury you. Vanessa bursts out laughing, her voice dripping with disdain. Empty threats, Lisa. You've got nothing. As they leave, Jake approaches, looking anxious but determined. What's the plan, boss? I smile, the wheels in my mind already turning. We're setting a trap, Jake. I need you to create a fake business opportunity, something too good for Vanessa to resist. While Jake gets to work on our setup, I make another call. Sarah, it's Lisa. Remember when you said you owed me one? Well, I need a favor from your PI firm. Over the next week, the trap is carefully laid. Jake creates Biotech Innovations, a fake startup with cutting-edge medical technology that's all smoke and mirrors. Just the bait we need. Predictably, Vanessa can't resist. Over the next few days, we record her attempting to hack into Biotech's systems, steal proprietary information, and even bribe an employee, who is actually an undercover PI. Meanwhile, Sarah's team digs into Vanessa's past, and what they uncover is worse than I could have imagined. Finally, it's time for the showdown. I call for a family meeting. Mark, his parents, and Vanessa all gather in our living room, tension thick in the air. Mark looks at me, weary and confused. What's this about, Lisa? I take a deep breath, steadying myself. It's time for the truth to come out. I press play on the recordings, the room filling with Vanessa's voice as she commits her illegal activities, bribing, hacking, and scheming. Mark and his parents watch in horror, their faces drained of color. But that's not all. Vanessa, I say coldly, has a long history of fraud and identity theft. 3 states, to be exact. Vanessa jumps to her feet, her voice shaking. You can't prove any of this. I smile, icy and confident. Actually, I can. And so can the FBI agents waiting outside. As if on cue, there's a firm knock at the door. 2 agents enter, badges out, walking straight to Vanessa. Vanessa Thompson, here under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and corporate espionage. Vanessa's face drains of all color as they cuff her. She whirls on Mark, screaming, Mark, do something. But Mark just stares, shell-shocked, unable to move. His parents are in tears, shattered by the truth. As the agents lead Vanessa out, her screams fade into the background. I turn to Mark, my voice calm but firm. I'm sorry it came to this, but I had to protect myself. And my company. Mark looks at me, devastated. Lisa, I don't know what to say. I shake my head, the finality of the moment sinking in. You don't have to say anything, but we both know this marriage is over. In the weeks that follow, everything changes. Vanessa's arrest makes headlines and more victims come forward, sharing their stories of her betrayal. Technova's reputation is restored, stronger than ever. We expand globally, our success undeniable. As for Mark, the last I heard, he was struggling to find work. Turns out, being associated with a fraudster isn't great for your resume. And me? I'm doing just fine on my own. Better than fine, actually. I've learned a valuable lesson in business and in life. Trust your gut and always watch your back. And that's the end of my story, folks. Now I've got a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Mark a second chance? Or did I make the right call cutting ties completely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you would do in this situation. And if you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of revenge, betrayal, and triumph. Your support means the world to me and helps keep these real-life dramas coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. At 52, I've built a successful business, but believe me, managing family drama is a whole different ballgame. Right now, I'm hosting a huge family reunion at my place, beautiful house in the suburbs, if I may say so. But at the moment, it feels more like a pressure cooker than a home. My son, Michael, and his wife, Sophia, are coming, and she's pregnant with my first grandchild. That should be exciting, right? But there's some tension. I try to be nice, but sometimes her way of doing things is just so different from ours. While I was prepping for the reunion in the kitchen, Michael cornered me. Mom, we need to talk about Grandma. I had a feeling I knew what was coming, but I still asked, what about her? Sophia's worried. Last time we visited, Grandma couldn't remember her name. She kept asking if Sophia was the new maid. I sighed and put down the knife I was using to chop vegetables. Your grandmother is just having some senior moments, Michael. It's nothing to worry about. Mom, it's more than that. Sophia's scared to be alone with her. What if something happens, especially with the baby coming? I didn't want to hear it. My mother, Gertrude, has been living with me for years. Sure, she's been a bit forgetful lately, but who wouldn't be at 78? Michael, I've got everything under control. Your grandmother is fine. Just then, my sister Karen strolled into the kitchen. Oh, are we talking about dear old Mom? She said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I was just telling Aunt Mildred how she tried to pay for her coffee with a button last week. Hilarious, isn't it? I glared at her. Karen has always been a thorn in my side, constantly trying to one-up me. That never happened, Karen. Stop exaggerating. She smirked. Elizabeth, always in denial. Oh, by the way, I heard Sophie's been feeling sick. Morning sickness, or maybe she just can't stomach this family. She chuckled as she sauntered off. Michael looked at me, concern etched on his face. Mom, maybe we should consider getting Grandma some help. We don't need any help, I insisted. This reunion is going to be perfect. You'll see. But as I watched him walk away, shaking his head, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get a lot more complicated. The day of the reunion arrived, and the house was buzzing with activity. I was running around like a headless chicken, making sure everything was perfect. The smell of barbecue filled the air, and relatives were mingling and laughing. But I hadn't seen Michael and Sophia yet. They're running late, my cousin Jane informed me when I asked. Sophie's having a rough morning with the pregnancy. I nodded, trying not to let my irritation show. Of all days to be late. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the chatter. My heart leaped into my throat as I raced toward the sound, pushing past confused relatives. I burst into the kitchen to find chaos. Sophia was on the floor, clutching her belly, tears streaming down her face. My mother, Gertrude, stood over her, cane raised, her eyes wild with confusion. "Mother, what have you done?" I cried, rushing to Sophia's side. "Who is this intruder?" I caught her sneaking in, Gertrude declared, her voice shaking. Michael appeared, pushing past me to reach Sophia. "Oh my God, are you okay?" he asked, his face pale with panic. "She hit me?" Sophia sobbed. "I just came in for a moment of peace. I didn't mean to startle anyone." The room quickly filled with concerned family members, and of course, Karen was the first to chime in. Well, Elizabeth, looks like your perfect little family isn't so perfect after all. I've been saying for months that Mom needs to be in a home, but you wouldn't listen, would you?" "Shut up, Karen," I snapped, but the damage was already done. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "She's right, Liz," Uncle Bob chimed in. "Gertrude could have seriously hurt Sophia and the baby. It's not safe." "It's not Mother's fault," I argued weakly. "Sophia shouldn't have come in unannounced." "Are you kidding me?" Michael exploded. "You're blaming Sophia for this? Your mother attacked my pregnant wife." The room erupted into a cacophony of arguments, with half the family defending Gertrude and the other half standing up for Sophia. I stood in the middle, feeling torn and overwhelmed. "We need to get Sophia to the hospital," Michael declared, helping his wife to her feet. "This reunion is over." As they left, supported by concerned relatives, Karen sidled up to me with her usual smugness. "Well, sis, looks like your big day is ruined. Maybe next time you'll listen to me about Mother." I watched helplessly as they disappeared through the door. The days following the reunion were a blur of phone calls and damage control. I tried reaching out to Michael and Sophia, but my calls went straight to voicemail. The silence was deafening and the guilt gnawed at me. "Michael, please call me back. I'm worried about Sophia and the baby. I'm so sorry about what happened." I pleaded into the phone for the umpteenth time. As if dealing with my son's silence wasn't enough, I began noticing whispers and sideways glances from neighbors and acquaintances. I finally confronted Karen at her house one afternoon. "What the hell do you think you're doing, spreading our family business around town?" I demanded. Karen feigned innocence. "I'm just concerned about Mother, Liz. Someone has to look out for her, especially since you're clearly not up to the task." Her words stung, but I wasn't about to let her see how much. "Stay out of it, Karen. This is my family, my responsibility." As I turned to leave, something caught my eye. A stack of papers on Karen's desk. One of them was a bank statement for an account I didn't recognize, but the name on top was clear, Gertrude Williams. My blood ran cold. What was Karen doing with Mom's bank statements? Over the next few days, I did some digging. What I uncovered made me sick to my stomach. Karen had been systematically draining Mom's accounts, taking small amounts at a time for months. And that wasn't all. I found a copy of a new will, dated just 2 weeks ago, leaving everything to Karen. "Mom, did you change your will recently?" I asked Gertrude over dinner, trying to keep my voice casual. She looked confused. "Will? What will, dear?" "The one Karen helped you write. Don't you remember?" Mom's brow furrowed. "Karen said it was just some papers for the bank. She said you were too busy to help, so she'd take care of it for me." My heart sank. Karen had manipulated our confused mother for her own gain. The betrayal cut deep. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Michael finally called. But it wasn't the conversation I'd hoped for. "Mom, Sophia's in the hospital. The stress from the incident caused complications. She's on mandatory bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Oh God, Michael, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" His voice was cold. "You've done enough, Mom. If you had listened to us about Grandma's condition, none of this would have happened. I don't think it's a good idea for you to be around Sophia or the baby right now." The call ended, leaving me more alone than ever. I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the failed reunion, and let the tears flow. As I cried, memories began flooding back, times Karen had accidentally mixed up important business documents, potential clients who suddenly backed out after receiving anonymous tips about my company's reliability, family members who'd grown distant after private conversations with her. It all made sense now. Karen hadn't just betrayed me this time. She'd been undermining me for years, poisoning my relationships and sabotaging my success. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd been blind to the toxic dynamics in my own family for so long. I'd always made excuses for Karen's behavior, always tried to keep the peace. But at what cost? As the sun set outside my window, I made a decision. It was time to confront the ugly truth and make things right. No more excuses. No more turning a blind eye. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Hello, is this Anderson & Associates law firm? I need to speak with someone about elder abuse and financial fraud. It's about my sister and my mother. The weight of what I was about to do settled on my shoulders. It wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. I hired Jack, a private investigator, to dig deeper into Karen's financial dealings with Mom. Meanwhile, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Patel, a renowned geriatric specialist, to assess Mom's condition. We've gathered substantial evidence of financial abuse, Jack reported, handing me a thick folder. Bank transfers, forged signatures, manipulated legal documents. It's all here. Dr. Patel's assessment was equally revealing. Your mother is in the early stages of dementia. With proper care and support, she can continue living at home safely. Armed with this information, I called a family meeting. As everyone gathered in my living room, the tension was palpable. I've called you all here because I have something important to share. I began, my voice trembling slightly, as I laid out the evidence of Karen's deceit and manipulation. Shock and anger rippled through the room as the truth sank in. Cornered, Karen lashed out. You've always had everything, Elizabeth. The successful business, the perfect family. I deserved something for once. By stealing from our sick mother. Michael snapped, disgust evident in his voice. I turned to Karen, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. I've made mistakes, Karen. I should have seen what was happening sooner, but what you've done is unforgivable. With the family's support, I moved forward with legal action. Karen's life unraveled quickly after that. As news of her actions spread, former friends and acquaintances distanced themselves. Last I heard, she'd moved out of state, leaving behind a tattered reputation and broken relationships. Focusing on Mom's care became my priority. I hired a live-in nurse and made modifications to the house to ensure her safety. Slowly but surely, we settled into a new routine. The biggest challenge remained mending my relationship with Michael and Sophia. Swallowing my pride, I reached out again, this time with a heartfelt letter acknowledging my mistakes and asking for a chance to make things right. To my relief, they agreed to meet. Sitting across from them at a small cafe, I felt a mix of nervousness and hope. I'm so sorry, I began, my voice thick with emotion. I should have listened to your concerns about Mom. I was in denial, and you both paid the price for it. Sophia, her hand resting on her swollen belly, spoke softly. We were angry for a long time, Elizabeth, but we've had time to think. We understand you were just trying to protect your mother. Michael nodded, adding, we appreciate you taking action now, Mom. It couldn't have been easy to confront Karen like that. As we talked, I felt the walls between us start to crumble. By the time we said goodbye, tentative plans were made for them to visit Mom, and I had been invited to their next ultrasound appointment. Weeks turned into months, and before I knew it, I was pacing the hospital waiting room, anxiously awaiting news of my grandchild's arrival. When Michael finally emerged, his face lit up with a wide grin. It's a girl, he announced, tears in his eyes. Want to meet your granddaughter. Holding that tiny bundle in my arms, I felt a surge of love so powerful it took my breath away. Sophia smiled up at me from her hospital bed, tired but radiant. We were thinking of naming her Grace, she said softly. After all we've been through, it seemed fitting. I looked around the room, taking in the scene. Mom was dozing in a chair, her nurse by her side. Michael stood proudly next to Sophia's bed. Aunts, uncles, and cousins crowded the doorway, eager to catch a glimpse of the newest family member. In that moment, I realized we had fostered an environment where something beautiful could thrive. The journey had been challenging, and it was far from over. But as I gazed down at little Grace's peaceful face, I knew that every difficult decision and every painful conversation had been worth it. Welcome to the family, Grace, I whispered, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. We've got quite a story to tell you someday. Now I have a question for you. If you were in Elizabeth's position, would you have pressed charges against your sister Karen for elder abuse and fraud, even knowing it could tear your family apart? Or would you have tried to handle the situation privately to preserve family relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters and could help others facing similar difficult family situations. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more like it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these complex family dramas and sparking important conversations. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video. Hi, I'm Elena, a graphic designer with a knack for turning everyday visions into vivid realities. The sun was setting behind us, casting golden hues over the beach as Michael and I stood hand in hand, surrounded by the people we loved most. The day had been nothing short of magical, with the air filled with laughter and the gentle hum of the ocean. "You look absolutely stunning, Elena," Michael whispered, kissing my hand as we turned to face our family and friends. The applause erupted around us, and I couldn't help but feel like the luckiest woman alive. As the evening progressed, the reception was in full swing, with guests dancing and the clink of glasses punctuating the lively music. Michael tugged at my hand, pulling me slightly away from the festivities. His expression was serious, a stark contrast to the joyous smile he had worn all day. "Elena, there's something important. Sarah's here tonight. I think it would be best if you apologize to her." "Apologize? Michael, why would I apologize to your ex on our wedding day?" I could feel my heart pounding, confusion quickly morphing into frustration. "It's just, there were things left unsaid, and it could give us all some closure." "Michael, this is our day. Why are we even discussing this now? Why is she here?" He looked away, the tension between us thickening. "She's a friend of the family, and it didn't seem right not to invite her. Just a few words, Elena, for my peace of mind." "Fine, if it means so much to you," I conceded, though resentment simmered beneath my calm facade. We approached Sarah, who stood awkwardly by the edge of the dance floor. "Sarah, Michael thinks it would be good if I said I'm sorry if there were any hard feelings from before," I said, each word heavier than the last. "Thank you, Elena. I wish you both the best," Sarah replied, her voice steady, though she avoided meeting my eyes. As we walked away, Michael squeezed my hand, thanking me, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. The rest of the evening, I found myself watching him, noticing how his eyes followed Sarah through the crowd. Later, when the music had slowed and the night was drawing to a close, I pulled Michael aside. "We need to talk about what happened earlier. Why did it matter so much for you to have me apologize to her today?" "Elena, it was just about making peace. Let's not ruin our night over this." Making peace? On our wedding day? It felt more like you were still holding on to something from the past. "Elena, you're reading too much into this. Let's just enjoy our night, okay?" His dismissal stung, and as I watched him walk away to mingle with guests, a chilling realization dawned on me. This was not just about making peace, it was a sign of unresolved issues that Michael hadn't been honest about. As the final guests said their goodbyes and the night air cooled, my mind raced with doubts about the man I had just married. What was supposed to be the beginning of our happily ever after felt more like stepping into a carefully masked trap. I knew then that this was just the beginning, and I needed to find out the truth about Michael's feelings for Sarah, even if it meant unsettling the foundation of our new marriage. The following day, still grappling with the confusion of last night's events, I met up with a few friends over coffee, hoping they could shed some light on Michael's strange behavior. Why would Michael want me to apologize to Sarah, of all people, on our wedding day? I questioned, stirring my coffee more out of nervousness than need. "Elena, you know there was always something unfinished about how things ended with Sarah." "Maybe he feels guilty," offered Lisa, always the one to play devil's advocate. "But guilty enough to ruin our wedding day? It just doesn't add up," I countered, feeling the frustration bubble up again. "Yeah, it's weird, but maybe he's just trying to clear his conscience," Tom chimed in, trying to sound neutral. Determined to confront Michael directly, I waited for him to return from work. As soon as he walked through the door, I knew we had to clear the air. "Michael, we need to talk about yesterday. Why did you insist I apologize to Sarah in front of everyone?" "Elena, I thought we agreed to move past this. I just wanted to smooth things over." "Smooth things over, or is there something else? Are you still holding on to feelings for her?" "Come on, Elena, don't start. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." It's not just a small issue, Michael. You embarrassed me on what should have been the happiest day of our lives. Elena, I apologized, didn't I? Let's just let it go. No, I can't just let it go. There's something more here, and I need the truth. Our conversation was cut short when the phone rang. Michael answered, his face tensing as he listened. Watching him, I could tell it was Sarah on the line. He was careful with his words, casting quick glances my way. Elena, that was Sarah. She's going through a tough time and reached out for some advice. On our honeymoon, the coincidence is too much to bear. Elena, you know I've always been someone people find easy to talk to. But why must it be you? Can't she find someone else to confide in? Why are you so insecure about this? You're acting crazy. Crazy, am I? Or is it crazy to have your husband taking calls from his ex on our honeymoon? Elena, stop overreacting. You're letting your imagination run wild. Feeling neither heard nor respected, I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next day, I contacted Sarah directly and met her in a quiet cafe downtown. Sarah, I don't mean to intrude, but I need to understand why you're reaching out to Michael now. Elena, I'm sorry if it's causing trouble. He was a big part of my life, and there are things I'm still working through. But why now, Sarah? Why on our wedding day? I guess I hoped it would be closure, not just for me, but for Michael too. This isn't closure, Sarah. It's stirring up more trouble. What exactly did you two not finish talking about? Elena, I don't think I'm the one you should be asking. The meeting left me with more questions than answers, feeling my resolve. I needed undeniable proof of whatever was happening behind my back. If Michael wouldn't give me the transparency I deserved, I'd find it myself. The gears were already turning for a plan to reveal the full extent of Michael's deceit. A plan that would need careful, calculated steps to execute. I couldn't let this slide. The doubts and secretive talks were too much. I called my friend Mia, who had always been my go-to in times of crisis. Mia, I need your help. It's about Michael and Sarah. Whatever you need, I'm here. I need to know what's really going on between them. I'm thinking of hiring a private investigator. Are you sure about this, Elena? That's pretty serious. I've never been more sure of anything. Can you recommend someone? Actually, yes. I know someone discreet and effective. I'll send you his contact. The private investigator was a man of few words but came highly recommended. Rick assured me he could get the evidence discreetly and quickly. We met in a dimly lit cafe where I laid out what I needed. I want to know how often they meet, texts, calls, everything. Understood. I'll get you what you need. The days that followed were a mix of anxious waiting and acting normal around Michael. Finally, Rick called. I have something for you. We met again, and he handed over a folder filled with photos, text message logs, and call records. The evidence was damning: secret meetings, daily texts, and more. It's as you suspected, they've been in frequent contact. Armed with the truth, I decided it was time for everyone else to know. I planned to expose Michael at our upcoming anniversary party. Mia was pivotal in orchestrating the event so that all our close friends, including some of Sarah's, would be there. The night of the party, the air was charged with tension, at least for me. Michael was his usual charming self, unaware of the storm about to break. As we gathered everyone for a toast, I took a deep breath. This was it. Thank you everyone for being here today. There's something important I need to share. I turned to Michael, holding up the photos. Can you explain these, Michael? Why have you been meeting Sarah secretly? The room fell silent. Michael's face went pale. Elena, what are you doing? This isn't the place. No, Michael, this is exactly the place. Everyone should know the kind of man you are. Elena, please. Let's talk about this privately. There's nothing left to discuss behind closed doors. You betrayed our marriage. The crowd murmured, the shock evident on their faces. Michael tried to grab the photos, but I pulled the photos back. Everyone, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. I found out Michael has been lying to us all for months. He's been seeing Sarah all while being married to me. Elena, stop this now. It's not like that, Michael pleaded. Then what is it like, Michael? Tell us all since there's so much to say. The room was thick with tension. Friends exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of whom to support. Elena, this isn't you. You're better than this, Michael tried to deflect. I am better, I said, and that's why I'm doing this. I deserve the truth, and so does everyone here. As I stood there, feeling the weight of the gathered eyes on us, I knew things would never be the same. But I felt the surge of empowerment, having taken control of the narrative and refusing to be a victim in my own story. This was the beginning of reclaiming my life, no matter the fallout. The room fell silent as the confrontation unfolded. Friends and family, some with mouths agape, watched as the drama between Michael and me reached its climax. "Why, Michael? Why did you deceive me? Why all the lies?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Elena, I didn't want to hurt you. It wasn't anything serious with Sarah. I was confused and I made a mistake," Michael stammered, his voice a mix of desperation and regret. "A mistake? Secret meetings, countless texts and calls are a mistake. You humiliated me on our wedding day, Michael. This wasn't just a lapse in judgment. Please, Elena, I love you. I never wanted to lose you, but you chose to betray me. How can there be love where there is no trust?" The room echoed with uneasy whispers. Our friends exchanged looks of disbelief and pity. "I thought we could get past this. I thought we could start over," Michael pleaded, reaching for my hand. "Start over after everything? No, Michael. It's too late. I can't just pretend nothing happened." As I pulled my hand away, Mia stepped forward. "She's right, Michael. You can't just play with people's feelings and expect no consequences. Elena deserves better." Supportive nods from others in the room bolstered my resolve. This wasn't just my battle anymore. It was a stand for respect and truth. Turning back to Michael, I took a deep breath. "This is over, Michael. I deserve a life filled with genuine love and respect, not deception and heartache." With that, I walked away, the murmurs of support following me as Michael stood there, a figure of solitude and regret. In the days that followed, the reality of my decisions sank in. It was daunting yet liberating. The path ahead was unclear, but it was mine to shape. I was no longer bound by Michael's deceit or the shadow of a relationship built on lies. I began channeling my energies into my passion for design, taking on new projects that challenged and excited me. My nights were no longer about what-ifs, but about the joy of creating, transforming blank canvases into expressions of my inner strength. Life was different now, quieter but more authentic. I had found a new community of friends who valued and respected me, and every day was a step toward healing and growth. Standing by the ocean one evening, the breeze gentle and reassuring, I realized that this was not just an end but a beginning, a chance to embrace who I was and who I could become. No longer defined by someone else's actions, I was free to be unapologetically Elena, strong, creative, and undeterred by the past. That brings us to the end of Elena's tumultuous journey. Now, here's a question for all of you. Should personal issues, like past relationships, ever be brought into new commitments, especially something as serious as marriage? Where should one draw the line between past loyalties and present commitments? This story unfolded with every secret revealed, leading to drastic decisions. What's your take on balancing personal history with current relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Your insights not only enrich our community, but also help others who might be facing similar situations. Don't forget to like this video if you found Elena's story compelling, and subscribe to stay updated with more narratives that stir the mind and challenge our hearts. Your interaction means the world to us, and we're eager to see how you feel about this complex intersection of love, trust, and past connections.